Think we are good to go. All right, let's begin once we start getting some people in. Meantime, I got to share the link a few different places. Anyone just jumping on? Hello, Anthony here with Puget Sound Stormwatch. Thank you all for tuning in on such short notice. Hope everyone is having a great evening so far. At least those of you that have power during this time, because there are a few power outages popping up across the Cascade foothills that I seen last time I checked was about 2 hours ago or so. So going to open up the PSC map as well and see if anything new has popped up. The first thing you see when you go on the site here is that PSC is quote unquote prepared to respond. So they already know that strong winds are forecasted across the, as they say, the West Cascade foothills. I think Saturday morning and the early Sunday morning gusts 30 to 45 plus miles per hour are likely for areas such as North Bend, Maple Valley, Hobart, and Enumclaw. Crews are prepared to respond as long as conditions are safe to do so. Roadster Jim, hello, says, hiya, watching from Snohomish. I think Snohomish, I believe you're just on the outskirts of that advisory, if I'm not mistaken. Pull up the outage map and see what we're working with. Okay, good news is there was a big outage up here in the VZ subdivision of Enumclaw. That has since been repaired. Still have an outage up in the Black Diamond area. That one is new as of the last 2 hours from what I know. Yeah, 3:54 p.m. that outage popped up. Sam Smith is checking in from Kingston. Hello there. We've had these 2 outages for a while down here in the Buckley area too. So one of them's been reported, no crew assigned yet, affecting 26 customers. This includes the Cabin Kids Preschool, just south of Ryan Road, east of Highway 165. A much larger area, equipment failure was the determined cause here. 90 customers affected just south of there, including the Nancy's Country Daycare. Again, the total here is 116 customers affected. One of them actually has a crew assigned now. So good news. Hopefully power shouldn't be out for much longer than another couple of hours, assuming conditions stay constant. Really outside of that, there's no other major outages going on. This one's from much earlier in the day. I'm not sure if this is wind related, because the wind so far has not reached out, at least the strongest wind has not reached out even close to the Kitsap Peninsula as of yet. So we'll be monitoring this power outage map as the night goes on. Not sure how long I'm going to be up doing this, just as a heads up. So I think right now I want to do this until about 8 o'clock. Oh, Facebook. Wow. That really got the news out, didn't it? Hang on. I have to bring the chat window into a separate screen real quick. I forgot to do that at first. Hey, welcome in everyone. Huge influx of people. The first 5 minutes and we're already over 100 people. Hang on. Cody Burnett says, windy here in Buckley. Looks like that's the first comment. Hopefully I didn't miss any comments. If I did miss any comments, feel free to chime in. Tell me, hey, you missed this, or just ask your question again, and I'll go through everything in the order it was received. Thank you all for your patience again. Probably going to be a busy night for those of you along the coast and in the foothills, so just hang tight. We'll be getting the stream links shared all across the web, and then we'll full on begin our live coverage here very shortly. A couple windows we're checking out right now. These are wind gusts in the last 5 to 15 minutes based on the observation station. Kim Leonard, hello there. Lindsay Duncan says gloomy in Mason County. Yeah, along the Hood Canal is one of those areas where we'll have to watch, not necessarily for wind. I've heard actually a couple snow reports up in Seebeck. snow or sleet. And some stations have been talking about this too, because there's a lot of cold air still bottled up along the Hood Canal on the leeward side of the Olympics. This doesn't completely allow the cold air to mix out. So usually a warm layer of air will move over cold air and underneath colder air. So as a result, any snow that falls into this layer melts and then refreezes again well before hitting the ground, but not in the form of freezing rain, more so a sleet or ice pellet shower. Really, it's the thickness and the height of the warm air that determines what precipitation type falls over this area. And it could be the difference between, again, ice pellets, aka sleet, or freezing rain, which is actual ice accretion on surfaces. Lindsay Duncan says, yes, we have had snow. Thank you for the clarification on that. Northwest Mossman, common drizzle here in South Kitsap. Thank you for the report. What does it look like for Whatcom County? Okay, yeah, you do live on the Hood Canal. Okay. Yeah, I was glad I was able to mention that. I do notice there's a couple of problematic stations out here. This one's been recording 30 basically all day. That is definitely acting up. The station down here in southeast Enumclaw also recorded 58 mile per hour gusts earlier, but I don't believe this is accurate. Based on what I'm seeing from the nearby stations, wind gusts haven't gotten much above 40 miles per hour. Of course, then again, this could depend on microclimate activity too. I talked with meteorologist Scott Sistek about this briefly. And if, assuming that station is recording accurately, it could be a very isolated, like mountain wave outflow burst, So basically what I'm trying to say here is this could be directly downstream of a susceptible mountain gap that funnels in easterly winds directly into this area of Enumclaw. The station, again, is in southeast Enumclaw, and I have talked with the owner of this station before, and it seems like he knows what he's doing and everything's certified and all good to go. It's run through a conversion program on a Raspberry Pi, I believe, called Cumulus MX, I think, and then updated and uploaded to sites like Weather Underground, for example. So it runs a conversion, so I'm not 100% sure of the accuracy of this, but this did record up to 58 miles per hour earlier in the day. However, I believe you could probably shave 10 miles per hour off of that total and still maybe be on the high side of things. But a couple of stations here have been gusting close to 50, and actually this station here, the WashDOT station at Tanner Crossing here, just outside North Bend here, did gust up to 50 miles per hour today. And this is a credible station. This has done a pretty good job at showing wind gusts up here during past, especially easterly wind events. And this one, in the last 5 to 10 minutes or so, gusting to 41 with a max gust of 46 since midnight, just outside of downtown North Bend there. So starting to kick up again with this next round of mountain winds coming through, aka Cascadia winds or Cascadia Gap winds. All the nomenclatures mean the exact same thing. But I distracted myself. I need to upload this link again. I got to cross-post it to X and Blue Sky real quick before we get too far into this. But first, before I do that, I'm going to check out some more comments since they're coming in like wildfire at the moment. Hi, friend. How is it going to get in Oak Harbor? So Oak Harbor, Bellingham areas shouldn't be too bad, but San Juan County was updated into the wind advisory. Believe, let's check this out. Make sure I have the right information here. This map doesn't show it, so I'm going to refresh it and see if it includes it after. Nope, it's not showing me up-to-date information. Okay, there we go. Not showing up on the map for some reason, but if I highlight over it and click, it does show the wind advisory there. So that's for San Juan County. There is a wind advisory in effect from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. tomorrow for southeast wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour possible. But that's likely going to be associated with the frontal system that comes through tomorrow morning, and we'll talk about that in more detail here in a second as well. Okay, hang on. Whenever I refresh this site, it usually has a little bit of trouble getting the layers to regenerate. Okay, there we go. We're back. Going to increase the font size a bit. Might be a little bit easier to see, but again, anywhere in the brown here is in a wind advisory. Believe these both expire at 10 a.m. tomorrow, which they do. 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time Sunday. And in the last couple of hours too, winter weather advisory was issued for the North Cascades. This also includes Stevens Pass too. So winter weather advisory in effect for those areas. 10 p.m. tomorrow to 10 a.m. on Monday. So just a heads up, if you have to travel over Stevens, does not include Snoqualmie or White Passes. And now I got to make sure I post this link. Okay, posting on Blue Sky, posting it to X, and then we will be good to go after that. Yeah, folks, I'll be following up with your questions here in just a moment. Appreciate all of you guys' patience tonight. You'll have around 110 of you guys on Facebook compared to 18 on YouTube. So, Facebook algorithm really got hit by that, didn't it? All right, comments and questions. Hang on tight, folks. Checking in from Sultan, says very windy here. Yep, I believe Sultan is included with Gold Bar in that wind advisory tonight. So glad I drove over Stevens Pass this morning and not now. There's the train. Hey there, Julie Rogers. Let it snow, let it snow. That was this last week. After that, I think, at least for meteorological winter, which goes until March 1st, we are probably done with any lowland snow chances. We're just going to have to cross our fingers and pray for snow chances this spring. But again, no guarantees considering how lackluster this winter has been. Good to see you live. Since you're covering specific areas, how's Auburn, Leah Hill looking for this windy event? Mosky Movies, welcome back to the chat. Good to see you again. Not seeing anything major out there right now. And let's load up the most recent model run here so I can give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about here. I just got to let all of the frames render real quick. Yeah, not expecting anything major for Auburn, Leah Hill. I think those areas were left out of the advisory, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, actually, parts of Leah Hill are included in it, but this is one of the zonal boundaries here. So it doesn't mean that if you're in this advisory, it just means you're within the boundary of it. So the zone that was predetermined by the NWS. But for example, all of this right here is one zone, but not all areas in this zone are going to get wind. And some areas outside of the zone also could get wind too. Just a disclaimer on that. So if you're in the brown area, expect this wind tonight. But at the same time, don't expect it to be as strong as advertised. Microclimates are going to be huge again, like with the snow. Microclimates again are going to be a massive determining factor on who gets big wind tonight and not. Even then, I kind of have to loosely say big wind because it's not looking massive. It's not going to be even close to what we saw in November of 2024. The system is a bit farther off the coast, but it's also much weaker. I think at peak intensity, it's going to be about 25 millibars less deep in pressure than... No, it's going to be about 30 millibars higher in pressure. I think the models are showing somewhere around 975 millibars or so for peak maturity for this system, and I believe it was around 942 to 947 for the November 2024 system, which will go down in history 100%. This one likely not going to hold a candle to that. So let me just ease some tensions on that, before the panic settles in tonight. Because likely, again, I have to reiterate that it should not be nearly as close as what we saw in November of 2024. So Auburn, Leah Hill, you're right on the cusp of the advisory. But since you're a bit more sheltered from any southeast winds than winds directly out of the east, because again, these winds are going to be coming out of the southeast and not necessarily the east. So they'll be funneled up through the foothills and then into the Strait of Juan de Fuca and the Strait of Georgia and then out to sea here. Not directly out of the east, somewhat like we saw November of 2024. But also, if you guys remember too, November of 2014 on Veterans Day, that was another massive east wind event with a lot of mountain wave activity, which, think of it like this, it's a tsunami of air. Comes in waves, they hit massive from time to time, but you get little breaks between. But when they do hit, they strike hard and quick, like a tsunami. So just think of it like an air tsunami. But this system likely will not be nearly up to that threshold to produce mountain waves, like we saw, again, November 2014 and 2024. Yeah, Misty Bikini, very smart decision to go over the pass this morning and not tonight. I agree with you 100%. Yeah, so you can see clearly this massive, what they call a cutoff low, aka a closed low, and are not necessarily a bomb cyclone quite yet. So the forecast has it becoming a bomb cyclone, but I don't believe we've deepened enough in a 24-hour period to have this technically considered bomb cyclone criteria yet. But that should likely change by tomorrow morning at the latest, early tomorrow morning. So this is the simulated isobar chart showing areas of equal pressure. The closer these lines are together, the stronger the winds are going to be. The European currently has this as 989 millibars. I'm not sure if that's 100% credible. There's not a lot of buoys out here to get real-time observations. That's just what the European Center of Medium Range Weather Forecasts, or the Euro or the ECMWF, whichever you want to call it, shows for minimum central pressure right now on this system. Again, even the Ocean Prediction Center is predicting this to take a left turn away from the coast. If this were to move any more to the right, which is unlikely, any more to the right, then we'd be talking issues for the Cascade foothills. But as of right now, this is expected to move a little bit west of north before hooking towards the west, well off our coastline, which in reality would spare us again from anything like we saw with the last big bomb cyclone. Yeah, Roadster Jim, the East Coast storm is currently a bomb cyclone. It already underwent its bombogenesis. Thank you, Terry, for your donation of 50 stars. Really appreciate that. Adrian says, long time no see. If any, would we be expecting gap winds from the east due to low pressure off the coast? Yep, that's exactly what we're talking about right now. You joined at a perfect time. So yeah, just absolutely beautiful satellite image right now. I shared one of these a couple hours ago, and the storm has deepened tremendously since then. It's much more mature now. See, clear as day BBO, aka bent back occlusion, here on satellite, and it still has a ways to go before it hits full peak maturity, which should be again around the 972 to 975 millibar range. Okay, so now we have to go through Facebook. Caught up on YouTube. A lot of Facebook comments coming in. The ratio of viewers between Facebook and YouTube is like 5-1 right now. Between 4-1 and 5-1. So I got a lot of catching up to do here on Facebook. Wind gusts Maple Valley, North Kitsap, Kingston, 40 degrees and raining, Silverdale, rain, and Burr. William Gatlin's in the chat. With our current wind situation, are you seeing an increase coming or the peak winds dying off? Well, again, the advisory remains until 10 a.m. for all zones, in exception of San Juan County, which was recently added into this. The San Juan County alert is from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. tomorrow, so not tonight. There will likely be strong winds over the northwest interior waters, again, but not up to advisory criteria, which is wind gusts of 45 miles per hour. Adrian says, thank you for your live coverage. Yeah, sure thing. Is Ocean Shore is going to get slammed? No guarantees. Ocean Shore is one of those areas that could get impacted by the front tomorrow, and let me show you a little more on that. So we're looking at the 0Z, aka the 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time run of the HRRR model if it decides to load, which is not, so we're going to refresh. That should work a little better. This model on occasions doesn't always nail the easterly gap winds, but considering how the NAM, the North American mesoscale model, did with the Christmas Eve bust, I'm very reluctant to believe what it shows because it shows quite a bit stronger for this general area. But I want to show you the front that comes through tomorrow most likely too. Because you're going to notice the winds pick up pretty quickly off the coast here. This is going to be a wind shift from out of the southeast to more out of the southwest. Either the south or southwest. So we can go over to winds and wind barbs and show you the flip in wind direction come tomorrow morning. Yeah, so you notice this quick shift to winds out of the south. Still kind of out of the southeast here, and this is around the time when that wind advisory goes into effect for the San Juan Islands. You notice the winds pick up around the Puget Sound too, and we switched over to southerlies. So the transition is going to be pretty quick. Likely sometime around 8 a.m. tomorrow, we're going to have a southerly surge of winds up through the Puget Sound. This is associated likely with a cold front coming through on the outside band of this bomb cyclone. So not the cyclone itself, but one of its frontal systems associated with it. And it likely shouldn't last too long, so that's the good news. I'm going to have to take a look at this too, because this may be something of interest to look at. Yeah, that looks like another wind shift after that front comes through, which could impact some areas of the South Sound and Southwest Interior tomorrow afternoon. This is showing another surge of southerly winds. Wind gusts on this map, showing wind gusts potentially up to 45 miles per hour in some spots. At 6 p.m. tomorrow. I want to look at reflectivity and see what this feature is, because that's a front. That is a textbook front, clear as day. You can tell by the sharp cutoff. Heavier rain here in the middle, lighter rain on the outside, and that wind shift. So we'll likely have to keep our eyes peeled for some of these frontal bands coming through that could bring those strong wind shifts. And this is showing rainfall through tonight, showers decaying a little bit as the night goes on, and then the next round comes in overnight. Could have light to moderate, maybe even some embedded heavy showers at times going into tomorrow morning around sunrise. And then we watch these segments coming ashore. This could bring locally stronger winds in the convective nature. Not necessarily associated again with those pressure rises, but if this were convective, aka rising and falling motion, it's the process of creating thunderstorms, rising and falling currents in the atmosphere. Have to watch out for this. This could pose even a quick little thunderstorm threat tomorrow afternoon too. I don't think the SPC has any thunderstorm outlooks for our area at the moment, but I'll double check on that here in a little bit. But in the meantime, we should probably move on because the questions are filling in quick. And people are beginning to hop off really fast on Facebook. So I don't think Ocean Shores is going to get slammed, but it's going to be noticeably windy. That's for sure. It's going to be noticeably windy, but it shouldn't be anything out of the ordinary that you see multiple times a year, even multiple times a month during the more active months. Little off topic, how's your part-time gig treating you? It hasn't started yet. Yeah, I'm still waiting back for some more information on it, but it sounds like the company that I got a job with should be doing inventory coming up very soon, so I could begin my work in March, potentially. But no, I have not started that gig yet. Roadster Jim says, enough for some power outages. Yes, absolutely. Commenting from Victoria, BC, which will also be affected by this. Yeah, I'm not sure if Environment Canada and climate, if the Environmental Canada, pardon me, Environmental Canada and am I getting this acronym right? All right, I'm just gonna say Environment Canada. I don't believe Environment Canada has any wind alerts, but if anyone wants to chime in and say if they have any wind alerts for the Lower Mainland or Vancouver Island, please do. Feel free. Are Jefferson and Clallam County getting any of this, other than the wind is wild here in Squim? The advisories for those counties are along the coast. There will be breezy to blustery conditions, maybe even some strong to damaging isolated wind gusts here overnight and through tomorrow morning, but there's no advisories in effect for any of the eastern parts of those counties. Usually the Port Townsend area here in Jefferson County will typically get a wind advisory during these events, but they opted out of putting one out for that area, at least for right now. So yeah, even though you're not included in the advisory up there in the Squim area, do expect some strong winds through the night and into tomorrow morning also. Cheryl says, calm and quiet in San Juan Islands. Yeah, for right now, calm and quiet up there. Maple Valley safe from power outage winds. I'm not going to make any assumptions, but based on the power outage history in that area already today, I'd say buckle up for a busy night potentially. That's just me talking about the ceiling of the event. You know, the floor could be a total bust. We may have already, there's a slight chance we may have already had our strongest winds of the day. And maybe the winds won't be as strong tonight as we saw earlier today. But it could also be the other way around. So we just always have to be ready just in case the winds are stronger tonight than what we saw today already. Which is entirely possible considering the storm system off the coast still has a ways to go before it hits maturity. Peak maturity. How's Whidbey and Oak Harbor looking? No advisories right now for that area, but do expect blustery wind gusts through tomorrow afternoon. Areas to your north, including San Juan Island, are in the wind advisory from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. tomorrow. So you may not get up to wind advisory criteria winds and gusts, but it'll be noticeably windy up in that area tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they put a short fuse expansion of that wind advisory tomorrow into Island County. I'll be sure to post updates on that in a timely manner as long as nothing comes up. You know, as long as I'm available and near any sort of computer or mobile device, I'll make sure to post that update for you guys. Gusty all day up in Gold Bar seems to be picking up. Yep, should be picking up area wide here. If it hasn't already, should be picking up shortly for the coast and the foothills. All right. Yeah, I've been going through comments that are about 15 minutes old, so a lot of new people jumping on. Hang on tight with me, folks. I got to restate what I said earlier. A couple of people asking for a recap. Yep, I'll get right to that here in a moment. Just got to get comfortable here for a second. Maybe take a quick sip of water, too. Because after this, it's probably going to be a ramble fest for a while. Thank you so much, Adrian, for your $2 super chat. Appreciate that. Adam's asking, is Graham in an advisory? Yes. You're considered one of the East Pierce County foothill spots. So this includes areas like Eatonville, for example, Eatonville, Graham, Elk Plain, Ording, Buckley, and Bonnie Lake on the Pierce County side of things. So again, Bonnie Lake, Lake Taps, Buckley area, southward, and south of South Hill too. So this does not include all of South Hill, just the eastern part of South Hill. It's how the NWS drew up their zones when they did the rezoning about a year or so ago. So this originally was one huge zone. All of the foothills originally were considered one zone. They split this up into, I believe, 3 different areas. They have southern Snohomish County and northern King County in one, and then central King County, and then southern King County and Pierce County in another zone. And they have all of these zones highlighted with that wind advisory. Yeah, W for Adrian for sure. Okay, so asking for a recap. Yes. But first, Daniel Mung is saying, hate to be negative, but man, what a disappointment for us snow lovers. I know, right? Here, the Coast Range got more than the Cascades, which is unusual. Yeah, that system was much drier than what models were showing for the mountains. And as a result, it ended up kind of giving the mountains the shaft this last week. So now we have to catch up even more on our snowpack before springtime. Okay, well, how about Skagit and Whatcom counties? Skagit and Whatcom counties, you currently don't have any wind alerts, but the higher elevations are in a winter weather advisory. So this includes areas like Sumas Mountain, for example, for areas east of the interstate corridor. The snow expected, total snow accumulation is 5 to 10 inches. Again, this is for the North Cascades, including Stevens Pass. 10 p.m. tomorrow to 10 a.m. Monday. Again, Cascades of Whatcom and Skagit, and Cascades of Snohomish and Northern King. So this does not include Snoqualmie Pass. This is areas north of Snoqualmie, including Stevens. Again, they're asking for when on the wind advisory. Wind advisory, again, is in effect from now until 10 a.m. tomorrow for all zones. All zones in the brown. I'll zoom out and give you guys a quick look at this one more time. And anywhere in the brown here, including the coast and the foothills, are in a wind advisory in effect now until 10 a.m. tomorrow. So along the coast, expecting southeast winds. So again, out of the southeast, 10 to 20 miles, 20 to 30 miles per hour, 20 to 30 with gusts up to 50 miles per hour. And then for the foothills, it's sustained winds again out of the southeast, 20 to 30, gusts to 45. But we've already seen gusts up to and over 50 from time to time. So they may have already bumped this up. Let me check the most recent message. No, they did not. Still says up to 45. But North Bend's already gotten over 45 easily today. So just tells you that the wind advisories aren't always 100% correct. Can we expect worsening wildfires and water conservation due to the lack of snowpack? I do believe so, yes. I've seen Cliff Mass's recent blogs, and he's trying to undermine it a little bit. I don't necessarily agree with that. The only way I could see this being a positive for the wildfire season is that it's not allowing small vegetation to regenerate as fast as... Hang on, I'm confusing myself. I got to go back and say that one more time. Yeah, so due to the lack of moisture, it's not really allowing that small vegetation like weeds, flowers, grass, and so on to grow as fast than if it were completely saturated up there. And so I do believe that the lack of snowpack is definitely going to cause us some issues in terms of both wildfires and water conservation come summertime. Just my personal hunch on that. Others may think differently, but that's what I'm seeing right now, with it being one of the worst snowpack years in recorded history here in Western Washington. I think it's going to be a pretty long summer for us personally. If we don't do a lot of catching up come springtime, probably going to be, again, a very long summer. Is there a gale storm coming off the coast? I think these are gale warnings already. Yeah, so gale warnings in effect. And for the entire Washington coast, the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and through the central Salish Sea area. The other contours here, these are small craft advisories. So not expecting gale winds for most of the interior waters. And no current advisories in effect for the Puget Sound or the Hood Canal. But Salish Sea westward, including Port Townsend, gale warnings in effect. And these are until 4 p.m. tomorrow. Don't have news channels here on South Hill. What's going on? So we're talking about easterly gap winds. Those of you who lived around here in November of 2014 as well as November of 2024 know exactly what I'm talking about. And again, I can't verify the exact reliability of the station, but it did just gust up to 46 again down here in Enumclaw. So yeah, we're talking about the wind advisories in effect. And some of South Hill is included, but this doesn't, if you're west or north, just if you're outside of this brown polygon, that doesn't mean you're completely out of the woods. But at the same time, if you're within the brown polygon, it doesn't mean you're going to get the notable winds. These are just approximate boundaries drawn up by the National Weather Service. I do kind of wish that these were more terrain-driven boundaries, but we'll just have to take what we can get. So yeah, South Hill, parts of South Hill, and Graham are included in this advisory. Yeah, Utah isn't doing great with water amounts either. Yeah, the West Coast in general, outside of California, which is something we haven't heard in a long time. California is doing great with all the atmospheric rivers that they've gotten over the last few months. They're doing pretty darn good in California for what it's worth. All right, more Facebook comments. I'm absolutely drowning in Facebook comments right now. But just a moment, we'll go over a quick little recap of everything too. So a lot of questions are when and where. So again, when? Going to be anytime between now and 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Where? Going to be anywhere in the brown here. So the coastline of Grace Harbor, Jefferson, and Clallam counties, including areas like Nia Bay, Ozette, Claylock, Queets, Moclips, Pacific Beach, Westport, and Ocean Shores. Again, are in this wind advisory until 10 a.m. tomorrow. So winds out of the southeast, 20 to 30 miles per hour expected with gusts up to 50 miles per hour. And then for foothill spots, this includes areas like Sultan, Gold Bar, Enumclaw, Eatonville, North Bend, Snoqualmie, Maple Valley, Black Diamond, and Buckley, to name quite a few spots. This is for southeast winds of 20 to 30 miles per hour with gusts up to 45, although we've already seen over 45. So realistically, in a higher end event, wind gusts could easily hit 55 miles per hour closer to the gaps. I'm talking about areas like North Bend eastward in particular. But the farther west you go away from the gaps, the lesser your winds should be. Yeah, again, a lot of location-based comments and questions. So try to go over them as reliably as I can. Yeah, a lot of people hopping on late. So, again, just a quick little recap. We're talking about this little spinny boy off the coast. So this is an area what's called a cutoff low, aka a closed low. So it's separate from the polar jet stream that usually delivers our weather events here to the Pacific Northwest and all of North America. So this area of low pressure is cut off from that jet stream, and as a result, it can meander off the coast for longer amounts of time. That, and it can also create these huge cyclones like what we're currently seeing at the moment. So this area here, this is called a bent back occlusion. The area of low pressure is somewhere in the center here. A lot easier to see if I enable the ISO lines of pressure, aka ISO bars. These bars indicate areas of equal pressure. And the closer these bars are together, the stronger the winds are. Again, the area to highlight right now looks like the Washington and Oregon coasts. But due to the low pressure being offshore with higher pressure inland into the east, this creates a pressure gradient that pulls a vacuum through the Cascade gaps from east to west. And if you guys were around the area in November of 2014 or November of 2024, then you know just how volatile these setups can be. You know, we had historical wind events along the Cascade foothills, and even parts of the Puget Sound got hit pretty hard. In November of 2024, my area here in Milton got stocked with 57 mile per hour max wind gusts. It's what was recorded at my station during the mountain wave events, which again, mountain waves are basically air tsunamis coming through the mountains. Hey Keith, welcome in. Keith says, if you need help answering questions, feel free to ask him as well if you're on YouTube. Darso says, good to see you. It's been a while. Yes, welcome back. Kim says, will the wind be stronger from the gap winds or when it changes direction from the south? I believe winds are going to be stronger with the gaps. So tonight and early tomorrow before the winds shift to out of the south will likely be the strongest winds for at least the foothills. You know, again, I'll show you guys the model forecast here. This is courtesy of the HRRR model, the HRRR as some may call it, which is a bit more reliable for winds compared to ones like the NAM, which, for example, the NAM is the one that really blundered our Christmas Eve wind forecast, which, as we all know, was a historic bust. Darsa, thank you so much for 500 stars. Keith, I'm actually yet to see or look through the slides that you sent me. I'll look through it when I have time. Sorry about that. Dagmar DeVere saying sound. Are there sound issues? Looking on my end, I'm not seeing any sound issues, but if anyone's having any sound issues, please let me know. Assuming you can hear me. There's fairly positive Enumclaw was included. Yes, Enumclaw is one of those cities that's included on the list. Just for curiosity, let's see what the most recent NAM is showing. Huh, that would be interesting. Again, I think the NAM's overdoing this. Okay, Margaret says no. Okay, so I'm guessing that means no sound issues. Yeah, Keith says loud and clear. Awesome. Thank you so much for getting back to me. I can't zoom in any more than that, unfortunately. The rest of it's digital zoom. But it's showing Seattle getting 37 mile per hour southeast wind gusts by 8 p.m. tonight. I think that's going to be overdoing it. So why am I even showing the NAM? Just to get kind of a better idea of how far downstream these winds could hit, but not necessarily how strong they could be. You know, the NAM, like other models, has its weaknesses, but also its strengths too. But so it modeled the break in winds pretty well. Like a lot of areas had a small little intermission between this morning's winds and the winds that we're currently getting or are expected to get. So the NAM seems to be doing okay on that so far. The NAM here also wallops areas of King County and Snohomish County too. It actually has Everett getting up to 41 mile per hour wind gusts out of the southeast, which should be an over exaggeration. Which is why I don't really refer to this model anymore. I just think it does better on showing the coverage of winds, not necessarily the strength of them. Then winds begin to die down as we go into tomorrow morning, and then we have that wind shift come up through the Puget Sound area. And the NAM appears to be much weaker than what the HRRR is showing right now. But it also shows a similar looking frontal feature come through here tomorrow afternoon too. Okay, we got a ding, but it's a... Okay, that's a false alarm. Good. Thought maybe that was going to be a wind advisory expansion, but it's not. So this shows, again, these blustery southerly winds coming up through the Puget Sound. Not necessarily the foothills, but directly through the Puget Sound. Late tomorrow night and early Monday morning with, again, that frontal system coming ashore. So let's compare this again to what the HRRR is showing. The 0Z HRRR. Let's go to... right about here. See, so the HRRR is a lot more generous on this. It cuts the max winds off by about 10 miles per hour. So when the NAM was showing 60, the HRRR is showing 50, which is much more realistic in my opinion, based on what we've been seeing for observations around these areas. And speaking of observations, let me refresh and see if anything else crazy shows up, which it's not, so that's good. They all said sound is okay. Perfect. Excellent. Jesse Allison says, great stream. Thank you for the feedback. Appreciate that. Perfect. Hey, Keith in YouTube, you have a question from Daniel Mung. If you want to feel free to answer that, go right ahead. Phone totally cut out, and I'm not sure if he said something about Auburn Enumclaw 4 minutes ago. Yeah, so eastern parts of Auburn, including parts of Leah Hill and Enumclaw, are included in the advisory. This is just sort of a rough aliased look to it, but anywhere in the brown is technically in the wind advisory. So the lowlands of Auburn, down in the valley, you should be fine. But it's up in the higher hills, so Leah Hill eastward, along Highway 18 through areas like Covington and Maple Valley, for example, up towards Tiger Mountain, you are included in this wind advisory. So again, this includes cities like Hobart, Maple Valley, Black Diamond, Enumclaw, and Covington, just to name a few. This sounds like our normal winds we always have. To a degree, yes. If you've noticed, they haven't been happening as often this last 6 months or so. You know, I think we've only talked about these winds maybe twice, 3 times before, and normally it's a much more common occurrence. And, you know, I've seen a lot of weather pages talk about, you know, the bomb cyclone and what bombogenesis is. And I think that's really the main reason why this is hitting headlines much harder. You know, I kind of refrained from using the bomb term up until today. You know, I mentioned it only once in a briefing yesterday on Facebook. I posted a video from all of you should know Pacific Northwest Weather Watch talking about the bomb cyclone potential. That outside of what I posted today is the only other time I've talked about this. So I'm only ramping up the talk about it today just because there's been such a huge flurry of questions and comments talking about it, not only from me, but also what they've heard from other stations and pages, and just wanted me to go in depth clarifying about it. So that's really the only reason we're doing a stream, because of all of the massive feedback from you guys. Going to try to answer as many questions as possible. And barring how many people stay streamed in and how many people, you know, ask questions. So check out a few things real quick. Ooh, a lot of people left on Facebook. We still got about 54 of you guys. Thank you, Ken Moffitt, for your donation of 500 stars. Really appreciate that. Roaster Jim says, great to have this dedicated Pacific Northwest weather focus. Yeah, I agree. In the Pacific Northwest, we don't consider each other competition. We consider it extra information. Because most, if not all, of the Pacific Northwest weather sources line up with each other. There's not really many contradictions. Kim says, thank you for caring. Yes, of course. Lynn Livingston works from home in Lacey, asking, are we getting the wind? The wind should not reach out that far. Lacey is quite a ways away from the mountain gap, so I'm not expecting this to get much farther out than, say, SeaTac. And even then, SeaTac's not expecting anything major. Maybe wind gusts 30 to 35, potentially a wind gust up to 40 out of the southeast, but then again, we're just kind of hypothesizing here. So again, the high-res model here only shows wind gusts of around 22 miles per hour at around 10 p.m. tonight. But again, this is one model, one run, one forecast. It's going to vary based on model to model and run to run. So we're just going based on the most recent information that we have. As you see, actually the difference between the last full run of this model and the most recent one is pretty different directly over the Puget Sound. This had some wind making it over the Puget Sound at 10 p.m., but the 0Z takes most of that away. And it keeps the winds a bit more confined into the immediate foothills. Doesn't really have it leaking off into the lowlands, areas like Seattle northward up to Everett, for example, which is good news for us down here along the I-5 corridor. Like, again, we're not expecting anything major. I've have heard some damage reports and some power outage reports already from Enumclaw. Someone actually had a tree fall on their house today in Enumclaw because of the wind, which was a massive surprise to me. Just checking the power outage map again, and we're not seeing anything new pop up, so good news so far. Any of the massive power outages down here, like that one in Enumclaw earlier, has been restored since then. And for anyone just tuning in, hello there. Anthony here, Puget Sound Stormwatch. We're talking all things wind and bomb cyclone. Which, again, bomb cyclone and atmospheric river seem to be those trigger terms. Which, based on which page you follow, can occasionally overuse it. Ooh, new tip just came in. Thank you very much, Gina Foxley, for your donation of 2 coffees. Appreciate that. Thank you for your generosity. Keith had a message, but he deleted it. Okay, there we go. New message from Keith. This is for you, Daniel, if you're still watching. Just listening, how winds for Enumclaw? Well, Enumclaw, again, you're in the advisory. I want to see what the European shows for this, because the European has already underdone some areas when it comes to wind. Again, a lot of it is resolution issues. This is a much lower resolution than the high-res models, which means it doesn't exaggerate terrain features as well. Some of these areas could be overdone or underdone. This is why we really pay close attention to the current observations and any live real-time data that we have coming in. So the European, between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. tonight, is showing a wide swath of 45 to 50 and even some higher gusts, reaching down into areas like Enumclaw, North Bend, Snoqualmie, Maple Valley, and Hobart, to name a few areas. Again, resolution is an issue, so this big red blob here may not be accurate to this specific area. Wow, thank you so much, Roadster Jim on YouTube, for your $20 super chat. That is massive. I promise you did not have to do that, but thank you so much for that. Yeah, big W for Roadster Jim. Everyone on YouTube comment W Roadster Jim. Keep hearing about the Chehalis Gap. Anything going on there? No, so the Chehalis Gap is way too far west to get any of its gap winds from the mountains. And the pressure gradient through the southwest interior here doesn't look super strong anyways. If there was much higher pressure from, say, Tacoma down to Olympia through Chehalis, then we may have a case for this. But the pressure is pretty much equalized between the mountain gaps and the coast, at least at the moment. So I'm not expecting any big east winds to come out of the Chehalis Gap. And besides, it's a super wide gap anyways compared to the narrower mountain gaps, like the Stampede Gap, for example, and the Stevens Gap. The Chehalis Gap, again, runs all the way from the south side of the Olympics here to the north side of the Willapa Hills. And basic physics says if you have a wide opening like that, you're not going to have nearly as much of a vacuum through it. You know, unless you constrict it down to a smaller size, like through the mountain gaps, for example, then you're not going to increase wind velocity through that wide of an opening. Which is a reason why we don't get huge damaging outflow winds directly along the coast from the Chehalis Gap. See, the European also shows these winds coming down through the morning time tomorrow too, but it's much less powerful. Like, it's not exaggerating the winds coming up through the Puget Sound with that front as well as the high-res models are showing. Could the Euro be onto something with that? Potentially. For all we know, the high-res models could be overdoing it too. We don't really know until it happens. I'll go back to the HRRR model here real quick, show you guys what I mean here. See, this shows the easterly gap winds through tonight, and then tomorrow morning, this frontal system comes in and it shifts the winds from out of the southeast to more out of the south or south-southwest, with some strong winds possible up through the northwest waters and even some of the Puget Sound here. This doesn't directly correlate with the east wind event. This is after that. So once this frontal system comes through, then the east winds are effectively donezo. See, and looks like the front edge of that frontal boundary comes through around sunset tomorrow based on this model run, which could bring its own strong southerly winds to the area as well. Just a heads up on that. Then after that, from Monday onwards in the short range, I'm not seeing anything of concern around here. Potentially a little break from the winds. Roadster Jim says, excellent local weather coverage. Thank you. Yeah, truth is, I could do a lot better, but I'm a one-man team here. You know, I write up all my forecasts myself. I do the streaming myself. All the posting is 100% one person, and that is moi. That's why some updates may be slow throughout the day, because I occasionally have some other obligations I need to take care of, and I really value family time too. So if I don't get through all of your questions or comments or concerns and so on, again, my sincerest apologies for that. You know, I don't have a team. I'm the one-man team over here. Pete says same here. Yeah, we're all of us, most of us are sole proprietors here in the Pacific Northwest. I think the only exception to that may be Washington Weather Chasers. There's technically 2 or 3 guys that run that page. So, catching up on a few comments. Stephanie grew out of Monroe and Sultan says, blowing pretty hard right now. It absolutely could be a nothing burger, but so far, at least the first wave was a something burger. We had some power outages and some localized damage reports that came in. But now we're past that and we're on to the second round now, which is currently in progress for a majority of us. How accurate is the weather app on the iPhones for winds? I really don't think the app is accurate for anything. Again, I really can't recommend the app Windy enough. Again, Windy, W-I-N-D-Y. This is the desktop site, but they have a really nice and well put together iOS and Android app as well. I haven't tried the Android app, but I know the iOS app is pretty clean. You know, it takes a little bit of intuition, but it's still pretty easy to navigate and pull up short-term and long-term forecasts. And it gives you access to weather model data and information as well. Pete says we have a risk for thunderstorms tomorrow. Okay, let's go check that out. I'll check out the SPC forecast. They may have updated it since I last checked. Yeah, you're right. Keith is right. It's mostly the northwest region here, but there is a risk, a general risk for non-severe thunderstorms for areas within 25 miles of a point. So while Bellingham may not be directly included in this contour, it's within 25 miles of the line, so by definition, this Bellingham is in the risk for some thunderstorms tomorrow. Wouldn't be surprised if new model guidance comes in and pushes this line a bit farther east. So we'll have to keep tabs on that. And then for the day after, Monday, no thunderstorms forecast. So this day 2 will be moved up to day 1 here in the next SPC update. I'm almost for sure of it. He's still gusting up to 40 here, Tanner Crossing. Just shy of 40 here in Enumclaw. So, yeah, wind gusts, they're not, okay, now 41 there. Recent update. And then 40 a bit farther up at the Snoqualmie River Bridge Homestead. Again, this is a WashDOT observation station, so pretty accurate and credible. So several 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts currently occurring or have recently occurred in areas of the King County foothills in particular. Yeah, Keith has the Android app. I'm guessing that means it's pretty good. So yeah, windy on iOS and Android. Ooh, we got a big update there. I think the Euro was a bit slow to update, but it shows an elongated area of low pressure now with a minimum pressure of 985 millibars. So if we haven't already hit bomb cyclone criteria, then we're pretty close to it. You'd have to go back and look over the last 24 hours or so and look at the 24-hour future forecast to determine if this turns into a bomb cyclone or not. But the expectation is it's undergoing a process currently called bombogenesis, which becomes a bomb cyclone. Cyclogenesis for sure. It's already a mature mid-latitude cyclone, but it can deepen even farther than that into what is meteorologically called a bomb cyclone. So it's not a made-up word, not the fearmonger. It is a term like atmospheric river. Just have to put that little disclaimer out there real quick. That this is a very real weather term. Sorry, just joining, but very curious about the Chehalis area and timing. There's no threat of wind from the east for Centralia or Chehalis. This is expected to be a Snohomish, King, and Pierce County threat. Again, the closer you are to the mountains, then the stronger your winds are likely going to be. But there is currently no threat for Thurston or Lewis counties. You may get breezy at times overnight, but we'll likely have a wind shift out of the south sometime tomorrow morning, and that's when your winds are going to pick up. Again, out of the south or out of the south-southwest, which is between the south and the southwest. And it could be pretty breezy throughout the day. We're watching for when this cold front comes through, and I'll show you this again one more time. There's a cold front that's expected to come through tomorrow afternoon that could kick up the winds quite a bit for the South Sound and the Southwest Interior, including areas of Chehalis and Centralia. Again, east winds switching over to south. We could have some breezy to blustery conditions over the Puget Sound tomorrow morning, as well as areas like I mentioned, Chehalis and Centralia. This is the model forecast from, again, the HRRR model, a high-res one, at about 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. It shows wind gusts down in this area up to 45, but this is likely overdoing it a bit. And then once this frontal boundary comes through right about there, noted by the sharp cutoff right there, could get another round of breezy to blustery winds down there. This model shows around 35 miles per hour at 4 p.m. tomorrow for your general area. General T-storm highlight. We need more lightning in the Pacific Northwest. Not if it's dry, though. Not if it's dry lightning. Can't afford to have any dry lightning, especially coming up this summer. If things persist as they are expected to persist, then it could be, again, a very long summer for the Pacific Northwest. Sorry, just joined. What about Buckley? Buckley, you're included in this advisory. Again, Buckley and Enumclaw, you are in the wind advisory. This is in effect currently from now until 10 a.m. tomorrow. Winds out of the southeast direction expected to be between 20 to 30 miles per hour with occasional gusts up to 45 miles per hour and possibly higher. Already seen higher than that today. We've had 2 stations record 50 mile per hour gusts or higher. But one of them may have overdone it a bit. This station down here in Enumclaw recorded up to 58 miles per hour. But judging by the history of this station, it may have overdone it by quite a bit. You could probably shave 10 miles per hour off of that and it would be accurate. The nearby stations, again, well, actually, I just noticed, I think we have a new station that popped up since the last wind event. Up here in VZ now, there appears to be a new station up there. See, like this one just pulled up a 51. I'm not sure if this is 100% accurate. If anyone in the Enumclaw area can chime in, tell me what they're seeing outside right now. That would be a much more accurate assumption. Like this station here, going up towards VZ and northeast Enumclaw, has a max gust of 33 miles per hour. Downtown station's up to 37, and the East Buckley station is up to 36. Yeah, these stations update every 15 minutes, I think. So we'll have to wait for a little bit to have new updates coming from those. But this one updates every 5 minutes. Again, I think this is overdoing it by 5 to 10 miles per hour. Judging by what I've heard from the station owner, the station runs a calculation that converts based on like the weather station's height above ground level. Because I believe it's below the roof line, if I'm not mistaken. I did, again, have a chat with the owner of the station down here in southeast Enumclaw. But it seems like he knows what he's doing, so I'm not going to totally count it out. Nicole says, pretty gusty in Eatonville. Steven says, hasn't been really windy. Okay, so, yeah, Eatonville's been blustery. The station's not recording squat right now, though. The station, again, not all of these stations are properly set up. Even though they're certified with the NWS, they're not always properly set up. Like this station too, something that's kind of odd about it is it reads the direction backwards. It says the wind's coming out of the west. It's actually coming out of the east. That's one of my main concerns with this station down here. Not sure if these humidity and dew point values are accurate, but very well could be. Just a couple of accuracy concerns I'm going over. Yeah, like Roaster Jim said, no dry bolts for sure. I agree with you on that. Pretty gusty. Okay. Will Redmond Ridge be getting hit? If Redmond Ridge is anywhere within, I'd say, 5 miles of this brown contour, I'm going to assume this is probably Redmond Ridge, somewhere around here. Then you're definitely in an area that could get some blustery winds tonight. Yes. I'm not going to count that out entirely. Like really, the entire Cottage Lake, Novelty Hill area here in King County definitely get some breezy to blustery, maybe even an isolated damaging gust or two overnight. Thank you, Shell Marie, for your donation. Really appreciate that. 99 stars. Appreciate the generosity. Battery is so low, I need to bounce and charge it. Thank you so much for reporting on this. I had no idea until the live stream popped up. Your service is appreciated. Keith in Ferndale saying light winds up here right now. Let's go check that outage map again one more time. It's been a while. Last number was 643. We're actually down by 5. So no new power outages since the last update. Currently in the foothills, we only have 2 power outages to note, at least according to the PSE map. We have a broad outage affecting 90 customers down here in Buckley, just outside of city limits there. And then we have another one up here just outside of Black Diamond affecting 76 customers. This one's currently being assessed. In this one, they have a crew assigned, but not on site yet. Hoping that these power outages will both be fixed before midnight. As you saw for this one down here in Buckley, the ETA was 4 p.m. and it's already 2.5 hours later. Thank you, Samantha Joan, for your donation of 100 stars. Appreciate the generosity. He says, thank you. I'm the top of Novelty Hill right before dropping into Duval. Yeah, those exposed ridges will definitely be getting some wind tonight. I'm almost 100% sure of it. If you're not already getting some wind, you likely will be tonight. Maybe not super strong, but something noticeable. Like really, if you don't get any strong wind along the mountains tonight, you'll at least be getting something noticeable. This really depends on your proximity to these gaps and how far west you are. Along the coast, not doing too much right now. It's windier out over the water as the buoys are showing here. Cape Elizabeth has a max wind gust of 54 since midnight, and Destruction Island has a max wind gust of 49 since midnight. These, again, are all offshore winds too, not onshore. Thank you, Ryan Reed, for your donation of 99 stars on Facebook. Really appreciate the generosity, sir. Looks like you guys actually started a stars party, so you know the drill over there on Facebook. And thank you, Aaron Davis, for your donation of 100 stars. Jesse Kokar, pardon me if I mispronounce your last name. Sorry about that. How bad do you think the Roy McKenna area will get hit? While you're technically just on the outskirts of this advisory box, you're close enough to where I'd say you could get some of these east wind gusts. Maybe not up to 45 or 50 like it's showing, but you could get anywhere between 30 to 40 mile per hour gusts pretty easily tonight. If Eatonville's already as blustery as people are telling me, then it's only a matter of time before it starts to work its way west towards your area. It's a little bit hard to tell because this box here, this polygon, is aliased. It doesn't have any anti-aliasing here on this site, so a little hard to tell exactly where the defined boundary is on this. But I do believe you're close enough to this box to technically warrant the advisory criteria, which in this case, again, is sustained winds 20 to 30 miles per hour, maybe an occasional gust or two, or a few more, depending on how this works out overnight. Upwards of 45, maybe 50 miles per hour. I'm just really, we're at the point where we're kind of relying on current real-time observations to make this forecast for the short term. Because we're already at the point where this system is rapidly deepening off the coast, to a point where any small changes in track or strength could throw off this forecast quite a bit. But confidence is that the storm system will steer away from the coast when it hits peak maturity, which would spare a lot of these areas from strong damaging winds. Again, this should not hold a candle up to what we saw a couple years back in November. So again, here is the storm system in question. Nice little cutoff low in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and below it we have cyclogenesis, which currently appears to be undergoing a process called bombogenesis right now. Again, at the mid-latitudes here, in the mid-latitudes, it deepens by 1 millibar of pressure per hour over 24 hours or less. So anywhere at least 1 millibar, it could be more than that, over 24 hours or less. It's considered bombogenesis, which would make this is going to be a trigger word. So if you guys hate the word bomb cyclone, then cover your ears and run away. But yes, that would make this, in theory, a bomb cyclone. Taking a water break here in a second. I'm going to take this time during the break to roll some ads real quick here on YouTube. Looks impressive on satellite. Yes, it does. Turn off the ISO bars and you can see it a bit better. I'll turn off the radar also. Hang tight. There we go. Yeah, this is current visible satellite imagery. I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to play some ads real quick. Get a drink of water. So, see you guys here in just a moment. Play a loop over the last hour or two. There we go, getting some more frames. Yeah, this right here, this is the cold front that's going to be moving into our area tomorrow. This is going to bring a thunderstorm chance to the northwest portion of the state, including parts of the Olympic Peninsula, potentially the Bellingham area also. It's also going to bring a wind shift that will bring some blustery winds into the Puget Sound tomorrow morning. It should shut down the East Gap winds once it moves in. So until this front passes through the Puget Sound area, then it will be under the helm of those east winds. But should not be as strong. Again, it shouldn't be nearly close to the strength of what we saw back in November of 2024. Like, it shouldn't be even close. Because as it's going right now, it looks like this storm system's taking a small turn offshore. If this was moving any closer towards the shore, then I'd be a little worried. But it's not currently doing that, which is great, great news. It's taking a more offshore turn here, which will move it away from the area. And if it doesn't deepen as much as models are showing, that will also reduce the wind risk overnight too. Let's see if we have current observations from the OPC, Ocean Prediction Center. No. Last one I'm seeing is from. Okay, this was issued at 12:51, but this is valid at. Looks like 10 a.m. So see, this was the storm system earlier. This big L with an X next to it right here, showing 995 millibars of pressure, and it's considered a developing storm. The track here, follow this red arrow right here. This red arrow swings it off the coast, which is good. This was any closer towards the coast, then we'd have to be a little more worried. But right now, the forecast brings it farther offshore, which is best case scenario for a storm system like this. What do you think Mercer Island area would be like? Not expecting too much for Mercer Island. Likely to get, at the very least, breezy overnight, but no major impacts expected. This advisory and the zone highlighted is mostly for areas east of the I-405 and 167 corridor. Really anywhere directly downstream of these mountain gaps, such as communities like Enumclaw, Eatonville, and Gold Bar, to name a few, are the areas that we're highlighting the most. But anywhere farther west of that should be okay. Keith says he's going to be doing a briefing tomorrow for the New England area for the blizzard. Yeah, Keith, your family lives there. That's where your roots are. I'm all for it. Go ahead. Notifications are just going haywire tonight here on Facebook. We thank you for what you're doing and the info you share from your friends in Graham. Well, hello there from your neighbor to the north in Milton. Thank you for the kind words. Just doing just taking advantage of this opportunity to be here to forecast for you guys in real time. This system, again, we're not expecting anything major. The winds may be a little bit more than run-of-the-mill than what we usually see in the foothills, but there have already been some areas where there's been power outages and damage reported. Actually got a comment on one of my posts earlier saying not only did the power go out in Enumclaw for that area, but a tree actually fell on their house, which was a real eye-opener for sure. So again, microclimates are going to be huge. Jesse says, thank you for what you do, dude. Thank you for following along. Yeah, microclimates, again, like with the snow, also matter a lot for the wind too. So depending on your exact location, your wind gusts that you see tonight are going to vary probably pretty vastly compared to an area maybe a couple miles away from you. Yeah, it really just depends on how close you are to these gaps and if you're in the right direction downstream from said gaps. Mark Wilson said Everett had hard winds earlier. Yeah, that was likely with the first wave. Keith, I'm hoping that was a typo. There's one station that looks like 1,111 mile per hour wind gusts. Yeah, hopefully that was a typo. Julie Green says, yes, thank you. Ashley gets in the house, saying good evening. Hello there. Thank you for continuing to be a member here on YouTube. And Jim says, be prepared, charge up devices. Yes, 100% agree with that. And we're in the nowcasting stage now. So the models don't really do much to help our case. Really just using the models to see what happens across the Puget Sound area tomorrow, when the winds transition to southerly. And we're expecting that southerly surge of wind to move up the Puget Sound sometime around 8 or 9 a.m. tomorrow. Nothing major. Could see the usual blustery to strong wind gusts over the Salish Sea and areas around it like San Juan Island and Bellingham in vicinity. But for the rest of the Puget Sound, it should just be a normal strong breeze to gale. Like strong breeze to light gale potentially. Lasting through at least the late morning, and then maybe some breezy winds throughout the rest of the day too before things calm down. I was really interested to see what this front does when it passes through too. Because the front itself doesn't actually pass through till later in the afternoon tomorrow, and it could bring a second round of wind gusts to areas like the southwest interior and the South Puget Sound too. But not the east winds. These would be out of the south. And it looks pretty brief. It might be a quick mover, so shouldn't be expecting anything major here. But if you go to the precip, that is a textbook cold front passage right there. Sharp line of heavy rain and wind right there. Very brief. I'm not seeing a huge pressure rise though, so that's good. That would keep the big wind gust risk mitigated for that. Take a look. I think 11 right next to each other. What do you think the maximum wind potential will be for down in your area? Yeah, coincidentally, someone about 10 minutes ago or so was asking for the Roy McKenna area. And I told them they're technically right on the outside of that boundary, but you should be close enough to where you may be included in at least the sustained winds. So sustained winds again are expected to be 20 to 30 for areas inside the brown polygon, with wind gusts 45 miles per hour possible. But we've already broken that 45 a couple times, depending on which station you want to look at. And this is through tonight and the early tomorrow morning. You're not seeing any big gusts for your area or really anywhere when the winds shift out of the south. Should just be your normal textbook winter day, like your winter rainy storm system that comes through. Nothing much more than that. Seeing no indications of big wind for the Puget Sound. Again, no indications for big wind in the Puget Sound over the next 24 hours. How's Arlington looking? Arlington, you are not in the advisory, but I've already heard some areas that have gotten some blustery winds around that area. So you may not get anything close to damaging, but you may get some noticeable breezes out of the southeast direction as the night goes on into the morning hours tomorrow. So yeah, in theory, this would be one of your normal easterly wind events that you get multiple times a year. But there's still a little bit of uncertainty. Ooh, look at that, 72 down here at Mount St. Helens. Still a little bit of uncertainty on exactly how deep this storm system's going to get off the coast before it really starts to hook off to the west. Because again, the path of this, you follow the red arrow right here. Hopefully you guys can see the cursor right there. Right by the L with the X right here. This red arrow shows it panning off to the west. Quite a ways by the time it hits peak strength. Which again should spare us a big damaging wind event in the foothills. I don't think we'll get up to that criteria today or tomorrow. The winds appear to have taken a brief break, which is good. Most recent satellite imagery shows a very well-defined area of low pressure off the coast. Posted a satellite image on my Facebook earlier when this thing was a bit less organized and quite a bit farther south. off the coast of Oregon and California. It was way down here. It's since moved all the way to the Washington-Oregon coast. And luckily, the area of lowest pressure should stay far away enough to where it doesn't bring any super strong winds to the coast or the foothills. Barring anything stupid happening overnight. Yeah, the NAM is definitely on a power trip again. After Christmas Eve's forecast bust, the NAM can go die a fiery death. The NAM has served its purpose. It's been, as a lot of people would say nowadays, it's been GG's. It's history. Check 2. I want to see what the experimental model's showing, the RRFS. We're within range now. I want to see what the rapid refresh forecast system, which will be the NAM's replacement likely sometime this year. See what it shows for winds tonight. Showing around what the HER is saying. So this is from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. and it's showing wind gusts between 20 to 25 miles per hour along the I-5 corridor and over the water. And a little bit stronger as you go up towards areas like Maple Valley and Hobart. And just outside of Enumclaw here. Showing wind gusts just shy of 50 miles per hour by that time. And then things gradually die down a bit. Maybe another little pulse around the time the sun rises. But then again, that shift to southerly winds becomes apparent sometime later in the morning tomorrow. But it doesn't show anything major, even with that front coming through. It shows it looking like a pretty anemic frontal passage again. So this just confirms my suspicion that there shouldn't be anything to worry about for the Puget Sound or any surrounding areas tomorrow when that front comes through. See, the RRFS experimental shows that frontal passage pretty clearly, just like the HRRR too. A little bit later in the day too. This would have the front passing over Olympia at 7 p.m. Due to the convective nature of this, again, the SPC has included parts of Northwest Washington here, including the Olympics, most of the Olympic Peninsula, the north and central coast, and parts of the Northwest interior here in a general thunderstorm risk for tomorrow. Because this cold front could be a bit potent when it moves on shore. So it could have some isolated cells like this one here, for example. It could possibly produce thunder, lightning, and maybe some small hail at times. Likely not going to be that intense, but this would definitely be enough to generate some lightning as it moves on the coast. Again, this is around 5 p.m. It has a pretty strong front with these embedded little squalls within it. And wouldn't be surprised if maybe some of these squalls are enough to produce some locally stronger winds, but not over a wider region. Also, thank you, Julie Green, for your donation of 99 stars on Facebook. Really appreciate that. We've already had donations from all 3 services today. So thank you guys again for your generosity. We've had Facebook stars, YouTube supers, and coffees. Again, the best way, if you guys enjoy the stream and its content, the best way to donate would be through coffee.com. And I'll post the link and pin it on Facebook and YouTube for you guys. Best way to donate, it makes the funds immediately available, and I don't have to wait till the next rollover period, which is monthly. Gusting to 42 at Kangley, apparently. Pretty nice gust for that area. Whitney Davis, hello there. Euro and HER are noticeably different from many places, as they always are. Yeah, I'm not even going to bother to show the NAM anymore, because the NAM's in a league of its own, and it's not a great one. But the experimental model, which is set to replace the NAM sometime this year, is showing a pretty strong cold front coming through the southern portion of the state. after the sun sets tomorrow night. We definitely, at the very least, bring some downpours, maybe some locally stronger winds underneath the squalls. Although this model's not picking up too much of it, it does show some very isolated areas where wind gusts could get up to 40 miles per hour potentially. These are directly underneath those little embedded squalls again. Not necessarily with the pressure rise itself. But the winds would be more of a convective nature, which again is associated with T-storm activity or hail. But not the low pressure itself. How does this compare with the NAM, I wonder? Yeah, the NAM, as you saw, was completely different. Like, it's not even close. The model disagreement in the short range is pretty stout still, too. Let's see, the HRRR shows some pretty distinct cellular activity moving up shore later tomorrow morning. And then it shows that big front coming through. See, but earlier in the afternoon than what the RRFS model shows. A bit more disorganized, too. This storm mode's pretty sloppy. It doesn't have much discrete activity. More of it's congealed. It'll probably be a bit sloppy when it moves into the area. Then the potential for some post-frontal showers and thunderstorms along the coast, too. This is probably why the SPC has this area highlighted here for a general thunderstorm risk for tomorrow. So be on the lookout for some potential thunder, lightning, and small hail showers tomorrow, especially in those highlighted areas, and I'll show that again, too, here in just a moment. But really, anywhere across western Washington is fair game for that activity. That is the green boundary here. Anywhere within 25 miles of this point has a slight chance of seeing non-severe thunderstorms. So this is a 0 out of 5 on the severe scale. Marginal being first and high being 5 out of 5. Just going to check a couple other feeds real quick, see if anyone else is talking about this. I see Michael's talking about the snowpack deficit for California and Colorado. Parts of California, at least. Yeah, California is doing better than much of the areas west of the Continental Divide, but there's still work to be done, for sure. There's definitely still work to be done. Brief little break in the comments, too. Hopefully I answered as many of your questions as possible. All right, and if anyone tuning in has any questions, feel free to ask away. Got plenty of time. No hurry tonight. I think we got most of the questions answered. How much precip are we getting with this? Precipitation will likely be coming in bursts. So it's not really going to be progressive. Well, it is going to be progressive, but it's not going to be stagnant like what we've seen back in December, for example. Let's go pull up some precip maps real quick. We go and see what the HRRR model shows for precip. Through the next 48 hours, this is what we're expecting around Washington State. So as of the most recent 48-hour forecast here, it shows upwards of around 3/4 of an inch for much of the Puget Sound area. Higher the farther west you go, and lower the farther north you go. Again, this is due to our all too familiar rain shadow effect from the Olympics. Kathy, thank you for your donation, 99 stars. Mostly just here to listen because I'm once again on my way to the emergency room. Oh, sorry to hear that. Hopefully your child heals up quickly. Yeah, sorry that that's happening to you. You really haven't been able to catch a break much the last few months. Sorry about that. Truly. So through tonight, this is through midnight. The heavy rain is done for the Puget Sound area. I think I even have radar scope still pulled up here, which I do. I haven't checked that yet tonight. But yeah, see, the steady rain for tonight, for what it looks like, is done for the Puget Sound. It may kind of get clipped by the southern end of this feature down here, though. But at least from what I can see, the steady, heavy rain that we got today should be over. And then tomorrow, it looks like we start getting measurable precip around the 7 o'clock hour in the morning. And then it remains fairly progressive with these small bursts possible within the front and any convective segments that come ashore. That could drive up those rainfall totals higher than the rest of the area. But again, this is going to be very conditional, hit or miss. Like, for example, my eyeball for this is definitely going to be this segment that comes ashore. If this is the whole cold front or not. Once this moves into the area, looking like sometime around sunset, maybe just before the sun sets. It's going to be a pretty swift, quickly moving front or line segment. That should bring some locally heavy rainfall rates for a short amount of time. While the rest of the area gets light rain or no rain, because after that front comes through, the showers become much spottier. At least until the next system comes in right behind it. Please let me check this out. This could be an atmospheric river. Yeah, I use one of the forbidden words. And the model guidance is quite a bit off compared to the high res and the European. Need to zoom out to view this real quick. No, it looks like it's just maybe a warm front associated with another system to the south. I don't think I see a direct concentration of precipitable water, which I don't. No, it's most likely it's going to be a warm front moving north, which will produce not too much precip, but at least steady precipitation, likely on Monday. Just depends on how far north it gets, because the European doesn't have it getting that far north, but the high-res models have it getting into at least the Seattle area. So again, the short-range disagreement continues. Go and look into the extended real quick, out over the next 6 days. Could have a breezy system come through Thursday, but that will likely change to some extent. Looks like a front coming through potentially. Yeah, it looks like the flow shifts to northwesterly and we maybe get clipped by a front on Thursday, but it shouldn't produce any super noticeable winds. Just another traditional, as I say, a traditional run-of-the-mill fall or winter storm system. Can't believe you used that term. Oh no, yeah, I use atmospheric river. You know, I should now be banished to the shadow realm. It's actually my first time checking out the 18Z data today, so I want to see just how deep this system is expected to get. Looks like the Euro has the system peaking around 977 millibars to the northwest of the coast sometime between 1 and 4 a.m. tomorrow. And then maintaining that strength until approximately 10 a.m. before the system begins to weaken. And then after about 24 to 36 hours or so, the whole system will be history. By the time it gets up to peak strength, it'll just collapse on itself. Yeah, this should be far enough off the coast to not pose any significant east wind hazards tonight or tomorrow morning. Strong winds are entirely possible, and we've already gotten strong winds today over some of those areas. Anything critical or catastrophic should be out of the question. Because this is farther away than the cyclone was in November of 2024, and it's significantly weaker. Like, again, it shouldn't even hold a candle to what we saw about 15 months ago now. Like 15 months and 2 days, I think it was. Yeah, Keith, someone mentioned earlier, it might have been you too, how there's a bomb cyclone on the west coast and a bomb cyclone on the east coast. See, there's your east coast bomb right there. Let's take a look at how quickly it goes from 1003. So we're at 7 a.m. tomorrow. And it has to drop 24 millibars over 8 frames. So we're going to go over 8 frames, and if it drops down to 979 or lower, then it's a bomb cyclone. It does it in 5. It gets all the way down to 971 in that time. That over a 24-hour period starting at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Let me check again. Yeah, it goes down 32 millibars in that time. That's likely going to be the real deal for New England. That is a strong nor'easter bomb cyclone. And ours doesn't increase in intensity that quickly. Not that quick, but it should still be enough to just barely qualify it for bomb cyclone status. Because right now, the Euro does show it hitting bomb cyclone status. Which means it has to drop to this frame, it has to drop from at least 1001 millibars in 24 hours. That is 24 millibars again in 24 hours. It can be a greater pressure change and or less time and still be considered a bomb cyclone. How strong is Enumclaw going to get? Enumclaw, as well as the rest of the area, should avoid destructive winds. Like, really damaging is going to be very spotty if we even get up to that. Strong winds, not out of the question. We've already had some strong winds today. Someone set their alarm outside. We've already had a history of strong winds in the area today, and almost guarantee we'll be getting the same likely tomorrow morning and tonight as well. Windlock, you are well out of the east wind area. So Windlock, you should have absolutely zero worries about what goes on over in the foothills. But when that front comes through tomorrow, sometime in the afternoon, the wind gusts could kick up briefly out of the south. Again, this is for really the Windlock, Vader, Toledo area here in Lewis County. Could have the winds pick up briefly there as that cold front comes through tomorrow. But outside of that, nothing significant expected, like with any wind, no matter where you are. Yeah, sure thing, Kathy Chastain. You're very welcome. Just watching to see if we have any wind spikes in current observations. So nothing destructive. That is the expectation, yes. Even the advisories that they have right now, these are for the lower end of the forecast. He says up to 45 miles per hour. We have had a couple stations report 50 already, just as a heads up, but that was earlier in the day. The forecast right now still stands for up to 45 for the rest of the night, but there could be some areas of 50 plus here and there. So I can't completely count it out. That would be ignorance if I were to count it out entirely. I'm just going to say there's always the slightest possibility that you could get something a little stronger, but microclimates are going to be huge. Someone said, thank you for letting us know in our language. Well, a lot of people are still asking for clarification on Facebook. So I told them, hey, you know what? I'm going to be doing a live stream tonight on Facebook and YouTube. You can answer all of your questions there in a much more timely manner. Always been fascinated with the weather. I was 10 and lived in the Columbus Day 100-mile-per-hour winds. Oh, very glad to see you're still with us. Yeah, not a lot of people that follow my page were alive back then during the Columbus Day storm. For anyone that doesn't know, that was back in 1962. Actually, I only have a handful of relatives that are still alive that lived through that storm system that came through. Yeah, this station down here has been acting wonky all day. The one at Brigadoon, it's been showing a pretty high number the whole day, while the rest of the surrounding stations at around the same altitude are showing much less over a smaller area. So I think it's possible this station is either improperly installed on the building or it's just got some technical errors. Because there's been basically no wind down here in the general Tacoma area that I've seen today so far. We did just gust up to 44 again here southeast of North Bend, so another wave of wind coming through that area. Yeah, New England's going to get walloped with snow, most likely, with this system. I think the strongest winds for it should hopefully stay offshore or directly along the coastal areas where there are blizzard warnings for a lot of major cities. Like NYC and Boston, for example, are under blizzard warning. I think it's about time for dinner, guys. What do you think? Oh, and I have to go over the Facebook follower count as well. I've been stuck in what I call the 38K jail since I believe around the time this year started. So it's been almost 2 months of basically no growth on the Facebook page. But we finally broke out of 38K jail and we hit 39K today, and it's still climbing. So thank you guys so much for following along. Appreciate all of your guys' intel and all the kind words. Means a lot. On our way to 40K here very soon. John Ross says, hello, Puget Sound Stormwatch. Today is my birthday. I'm 37, weatherman. Happy birthday to you, John Ross. Thank you for tuning in on your very special day. Yeah, Keith says he agrees on that too. Current follower counter on Facebook is at 39,111. A few hours ago, I remember it was at 38,985. That was when I left the house. I left the apartment, went to my mom's house for a while, came back, and we're well over 39,000. So almost 200 net follows since that happened. Again, appreciate all the shares, all the likes, all the follows, and of course, the donations too. Without you guys, this would not be possible. Still have 35 of you guys on Facebook and 16 of you guys on YouTube. I think we got the point across to most of the people. A lot of people tuned in at first and it just gradually began to decay. I'm hoping that's because I answered as many of your questions as possible and you just decided, okay, we got the information, we're going to head out. Hopefully it's not because I missed any questions or was rambling too long about something else. Pete says, yes, we did. Try my best not to burn out my voice box again tonight. It's already getting a little sore. All right, good news. Those major outages were repaired since the last update. Isolated this outage down to looks like just the lake, the north side of Franklin Howard Road, lake number 12 here. This was a much wider area before, and they've narrowed it down to 41 customers. Outside of that, no other major widespread outages. So, great job, PSC. Doing good work out there. Huh, look at that. We have Matthew Day in here, one of my family members. Just hope you and your mom are well. Keep up the good work. This is dope. Glad to see someone making a difference and helping others. Yeah, thank you, Matt, for the support. Long time no see. Hopefully we all have a family reunion here sometime soon. Like to make it out to one of those one of these days. All right, Keith, have a great night. Thank you for moderating and keeping everything civil. Best of luck on your briefing. I'll be sure to tune in for that. If you guys want to go follow along on Keith's page on Facebook, it is KDawg Weather. K-DAWG Weather. That is Keith Capolero's weather blog. With your guys' help, we got his page to over 125 followers. Mike says, seems like forecast models are in consensus that will avert a major wind event. Yes, that is correct. Could have isolated stronger winds. We have already and are seeing some wind gusts in the 40 plus mile per hour range. But like I've reiterated, pardon me, we should be avoiding anything major. Because I've noted several times that this will not hold a candle to what we've seen in past years, including November of 2024. Should not hold a candle to it. Now, hoping I got that point across in previous posts also. I think so far I've only made 3 posts on the bomb cyclone on Facebook. I probably could have posted about it earlier, but it was overshadowed by the snow risks that we were having. I wanted to focus more of my resources on the snow than I did really anything else. And it just kind of overshadowed the potential for another offshore bomb cyclone, which luckily, as other people have reiterated, it's not looking like a massive deal. Ideally, again, it should be your run-of-the-mill event. But a lot of people are accusing of fear-mongering again, too, which I really don't hear the end of when events like this either don't pan out for everyone or don't pan out for one person in a certain area. And it does pan out for others. It's just gotten to the point where sometime last year, I've actually disabled any non-follower comments on Facebook, and it saved me a lot of sanity. There were some posts where I accidentally forgot to disable it and left it public, and found out real quick, like, hey, you're to a point, like, your page is to a size, like, to a follower base where you can't get caught slipping like that anymore. There were like 1 or 2 posts during that time where I left completely wide open, no restrictions. And it's just people completely either bashing each other or bashing me about the forecasts or having disagreements or bringing up politics and so on. And I'm not about that whatsoever. Ashley has a great question on YouTube. I have to ask, what are your best tips for someone trying to grow their page? Can't seem to get up over 100 followers on my art page. Yeah, that's a tough one. Most of my growth has been organic. So, but by that, I mean, like, without having to inject money into posting ads. You know, I've never had to post a single page ad through Facebook. You know, like, really my best suggestion is to follow a niche and keep following through with it. You know, as time goes on. That's all I can really spit out right now, because my growth really occurred in single bursts over the last couple of years. Think about it like this. In February of last year, around this time last year, I only had followers in the 5,000 or 6,000 range mark. And now we're less than 1,000 away from 40K. Like, it's really just because people see the content, they react to the content, that stimulates the algorithm, and then they share to their friends, and those shares all branch out in a hierarchy, and your page just explodes. Of course, a lot of that is due to huge inclement weather events, or some of those have been busts. Like the first big burst I had last year was during the March weather outbreak that really never was. That got me into the 10,000 follower range, and it's been uphill ever since. So really just pick a niche and follow through with it. If you can, something that's unique, and you know, don't hesitate to ask larger pages of the same niche for advice, or even if they're friendly enough to potentially share your content to their larger audience. Thought everyone was saying the same thing on that wind event, so. Pamela says, don't blame you one bit for limiting the responses. Really appreciate the information you share with us. Yeah, thank you, Pamela, also for being a subscriber on Facebook. That also reminds me, too, if you want to subscribe to Puget Sound Stormwatch on Facebook, only 99 cents a month. And, you know, you get access to a lot of behind-the-scenes perks, such as, for example, when I drop new merch. I do have merch as well. You guys want to follow along this page, too. If anyone's interested, I can post the link below. 20% off everything for the next 2 days. And I have several designs that you can pick from. And the link for that is pugetsoundstormwatch.myspreadshop.com, but you can find the link pinned to my Facebook page as well as in the description of this YouTube stream. But with all that aside, yeah, growth takes time and it takes effort. So continue to put effort into your pages and give it time. And the algorithm should do the rest. Perks are nice too, and you're consistent in keeping us informed as subscribers too. Yeah, unfortunately I went 6 days without making a post on my subscriber page, which just because I got so caught up in the snow, I just kind of forgot about you guys. So my apologies for that. But I do have a page where I update you guys mostly daily. I've been really consistent with daily posts up until like the last month or so on posting more long-range extended updates and my analyses on these forecasts. So just talking about when we could expect a potential atmospheric river or another potential windstorm in the long run, and just update you guys on those changes. And I've been talking a lot about the mountain snowpack forecast as well. I think my most recent post was yesterday talking about how my most recent mountain snowpack forecast was a dramatic bust, because the precipitation came in a lot more scarce than it was expected to be. Yeah, Pamela is one of those people that can vouch for me on that too. Again, that's 99 cents a month on Facebook if you're interested in helping out. But other than that, as long as you guys watch the live streams, like the content, share the page, and so on, you guys are doing me more than enough favors. So really appreciative of that. See if we have any new model runs coming in. It looks like 2Z her is done. This goes out to 18 hours. We'll talk about something related to the weather to make sure we don't veer too far off topic here. Yeah, it looks like there's a front off the coast. If the 2Z her, this was the one that started rendering at 6 o'clock p.m. this afternoon. The 2Z her is on to something, then there's likely a cold front that'll move towards the coast by 6 o'clock. It'll likely decay by the time it gets into the Puget Sound. And then we'll be watching for what I believe is a secondary cold front that moves up into the Puget Sound tomorrow afternoon. We go back 2 model runs earlier, you can still see it. It's a little less discreet though. Let's see, this looks like the main cold front that comes in sometime around 4 or 5 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, depending on where you are. It'll be a little bit later the farther east you are. But these may not also be fronts either. These could just be little squall segments that kind of look like fronts. It's just something we'll have to watch in real time tomorrow. Time goes on to see what exactly is happening. But definitely passing showers and some steady rain at times throughout the day tomorrow. But no major wind outside of some breezy to blustery wind gusts out of the south once that first initial segment comes through, which I believe is part of the frontal system. You notice as soon as that comes through, the east winds shut off and the winds switch to out of the south, which is exactly what you see with the front once it comes through. A big wind shift. And again, these totals may be a bit on the higher side of things. So wind gusts may not get up to 44 in Seattle. It may not get up to 39 in Tacoma at 10 a.m. tomorrow. It could be considerably less than that. It could be a little bit stronger than that. That's why we always pay attention to the real-time data. See, we must have just had a pretty noticeable gust come through there in the King County foothills. Is there anyone out in Enumclaw, North Bend, or any areas that just got hit by a pretty decent wind gust in the last 5 minutes or so? We're recording 45 here in Enumclaw and 48 out near North Bend. These areas are oriented really well with these southeasterly winds coming off the mountains. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was a very localized wind gust that hit some areas in the last 5 minutes or so. And if I have anyone watching from these areas, did you feel anything in the last 5 minutes? Any big gust of wind? Anything remotely similar? Feel free to chime in if you did. See, people reporting headaches from the pressure rapidly decreasing too. Is definitely not unheard of. It happens from time to time, especially with the stronger storm system. The pressure rise or pressure drop can cause headaches and issues, especially if you have. Ooh, sorry, I just got distracted by a Facebook update. See people sharing the stream too. Thank you guys. Dad says M says hi. Emberly, Uncle Anthony says hello. Kim said, yes, was a brief gust through here. Thank you for following up on that, Kim. Again, this station's been a little bit wonky today. I'm not trusting that this max gust of 58 miles per hour actually occurred. Entirely possible, but I haven't heard of any major reports coming in from Enumclaw outside of someone who had a tree fall on their house in a completely different part of the city a few hours back. Seems comments have come to a brief little lull, so knock on wood, I haven't had any issues with YouTube streaming since December. Because, man, at December, the stream on my end kept crashing several times and I'd had to keep restarting it. It was frustrating to do, especially during the big atmospheric river coverage that I was doing during like half of December, where I was streaming almost every day. Knock on wood, again, I haven't had any of those issues yet this year that I know of. So just going to ride the good luck and hope that all of the comments are coming in and I'm not missing anything. But if I miss your comment, again, feel free to follow up and I will answer your question again in a timely manner. Yeah, for anyone who may just be tuning in, again, this is Anthony with Puget Sound Stormwatch, Facebook, YouTube, other social media platforms across the web at Puget Sound Stormwatch. We're looking at the areas in particular in the brown here. Areas in the brown are in a wind advisory until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. This includes the Washington Coast, Grays Harbor County, Jefferson County, and Clallam County along the coast as well. Doesn't show up here, but San Juan County was added into the wind advisory, but from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. tomorrow. For those southeasterly wind gusts up to 45 miles per hour possible at times. Again, that's later on in the day as that frontal system's coming through, not directly correlating with the mountain gap winds. So a bit of a different setup there. But still expecting similar winds out of a similar direction than what we're expected to see or have already seen tonight. Little heads up to my San Juan County folks that are tuning in tonight. Yeah, must have gotten the point across because the viewership just tanked. So hopefully I answered everyone's questions in a timely manner, that there were no disruptions on the viewer's end. I intended to go live for a little bit, again, just because I had so many comments and questions coming in particular about when and where the winds were going to occur. And so my goal was to reach as many people as possible in a short amount of time. And that is what pushed the live stream this afternoon, albeit a little bit late than our more regularly scheduled live streams, which have been far and few this February, unfortunately. Depending on what goes on in March, that could decrease even more too. So just a heads up. The live streams may not be as frequent. It really just depends on when I hear back about this job that I was technically given. That will make me step down full time from Puget Sound Stormwatch. I talked about briefly before. So I was offered a job position from one of my friends, one of my close friends who I've known for a long time. I accepted it. I'm just waiting to hear back on specific details about when and where I start. And just kind of hoping for the best at this point, because doing this as a full-time career was a huge risk. It's not working out, and been losing more than I'm gaining, unfortunately. That's just a harsh reality to it. But the fact that I'm here right now talking to you guys at this time and not working, I consider that to be a huge bonus too. See if we can update these winds. Yeah, this one updates every 5 minutes, so it's all the way down to 29 miles per hour now. No longer hitting that 45 mark. This station updates less frequently, the one at Tanner Crossing, this WashDOT station. So we'll probably have to wait a few minutes to get a new reading on this. But this one did report 48, and this one has been one of those reliable and credible stations. So I'm not going to doubt that we got a wind gust up to 48 miles per hour within the last 10 minutes or so. Just outside of North Bend here, closer to the mountain gaps. These will likely continue through the night and in the early tomorrow morning. Could potentially strengthen, or they could weaken. Kim Leonard says, yeah, going to miss this. Yeah, I'll definitely miss it too, but life's heading in a different direction. It was fun while it lasted. But unfortunately, it's not going to last as a full-time gig. This again was more of an experiment that I kind of dragged on for too long. And it's coming back to bite me. It's hurting me in the long run, and things have to change. So I'm making those changes now to hopefully avoid any more discrepancies in the near future. But I will say, for the most part, at least, it was fun while it lasted. I will agree on that. It's been an honor serving the Puget Sound and surrounding areas full-time for the last 6 months or so. Winnie Alexa says, going to miss your coverage of storms for sure. Best of luck. I'm hoping if things line up, I should still be able to cover storms as long as I don't have any work interference schedule-wise. But yeah, the storm coverage has been fun, even if it hasn't been fun for the people who lost property and even lost lives. I mourn for them, but the fact that I was able to help and provide coverage to everyone in a timely manner made me feel a lot better about myself during the time. Cheryl Heller is asking, how's it looking for Port Townsend tomorrow? Currently no advisories for your area, but it definitely could get quite breezy, even blustery, with wind gusts up to or maybe exceeding gale force as we go through the afternoon hours tomorrow. Now, San Juan County is in a wind advisory from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is a heads up. No wind advisories again for Port Townsend or for Island County or any of the I-5 corridor up north of Everett. Like sometimes we usually see during the big wind events up there. So that should be an optimistic sign that we're not expecting anything massive up there. Again, I'm not really expecting anything huge for any of this through tonight or tomorrow. Just your typical southeasterly to southerly gusts coming up here through the waters. Cheryl says, thank you for the heads up. Yeah, gladly. Whitney says, great news. Kim says, yes, that would be fantastic. Yeah, I'll try my best, everyone. The stream format will likely be changing here in the next month. Because due to these unforeseen circumstances, I will likely be moving out of this apartment sometime in the next month. And so I may be going with a more portable stream setup if that does happen. But the way things are going right now, that's the way that things are likely going to be unfolding. So this is a heads up. The full setup that I have right now will likely be a thing of history, at least in the short term. Just thought I would get that out there so that there's no confusion. In case you guys notice any long hiatuses, anything like that. It's just because of that. Okay, and then we're back up to 46 in Enumclaw. Again, I don't know if this is 100% credible. But this station's kind of been off the charts today, and it has been off the charts for the last few wind events that we've had out here. Because I talked to the owner of this station again down here in southeast Enumclaw, and I believe due to its setup being a bit below the roof line, if I'm not mistaken, he has to run a calculation through a computer program that then uploads it to Weather Underground. I believe he said the accuracy was within plus or minus 5 miles per hour, if I'm not mistaken. At least that's most of the time. It's also possible that that specific portion of Enumclaw could be in its own little microclimate too, that gets stronger winds out of the east. So all of those solutions are on the table. Kim says, oh darn, yeah. Oh darn for sure. New forecast discussion just came out. Read this real quick, but before we read this, I need to take a water break. Gonna go ahead, run ads on here on YouTube one more time. Gonna take a short water break. Get up, stretch. And then we will continue with our regular programming after that. So hang tight, folks. I'll be back very shortly. Lost a lot of viewership right there. Laugh out loud commercial break. Yeah, I've gotten more into the habit of running ads during those quick breaks. And hopefully not running ads during an important time of the stream, where some people may accidentally miss important information. But I do have the normal ad frequency right now, so hopefully it doesn't interrupt too much of the important parts of the stream. But right now, anywhere you're kind of in a downtrend of the stream where a lot of people are tuning out nonetheless. But if it were breaking coverage, there would be absolutely no ads. There would be 0 ads and breaking live coverage, which luckily this isn't considered breaking. This is more of an informational discussion requested by the viewers. I don't want to be one of those pages that runs an obnoxious number of ads during their streams. You know, just enough to where it's healthy, and I also earn a decent chunk of the ad revenue back, and hopefully don't lose it as time goes on. Because the last couple of months have been really slow weather-wise, and this is the reason why it's really starting to hurt the bank. You know, it just hasn't been really profitable as a career the last couple of months. After December wound down and we started off the new year, we immediately went into a stagnant weather pattern, and no one wants to tune in for that. But let's get back to the weather again before we get too off topic. So the current synopsis as of 7:53 p.m. This is hot off the press. Hopefully ads are done for YouTube and we have everyone back. So an upper level low will spin multiple fronts crossing the region over the weekend. Fronts will bring several rounds of lowland rain, mountain snow, and gusty winds through early next week. Temperatures will warm to near seasonal values this week and onward. Active weather continues through the end of next week. That is the overall synopsis again. Short-term forecast tonight through Monday night reads, starting to see the first wave of precip make its way inland, getting as far east as the Olympics on latest radar imagery. Latest wind observations showing some gusts in the advisory areas and along the coast and the Cascade Gaps, but nothing meeting criteria just yet. Wind speeds just upstream, however, suggest that advisory level gusts should still be on tap during the overnight hours tonight. Talking about areas like Enumclaw and North Bend, for example. That said, inherited forecast remains on track with no evening update needed. Moski Movies has a question. Mentioned that you talked to the owner of the weather station in Enumclaw. Are most of the numbers we're seeing on the map privately owned weather station? As far as I know, they're not privately owned. They're all public. Like, if I'm getting what you're talking about, if I'm assuming it correctly, you're talking about, they're, by definition, they're private weather stations because people own them on their property. Like, they're exclusive to them. It's not public, as in, like, a WashDOT station or a statewide OBS station. Yeah, so they can choose to upload their information to the web or keep it for personal use. But they did choose to upload their information publicly, which makes it publicly accessible. So by definition, it may be privately owned, but it's public information because it's being put on the web free to use. Hopefully that answer wasn't too confusing. Rebecca says, when is this? All right, Rebecca, I'm guessing you're just tuning in. Hello there. Just a lot of text. It looks a little bit condescending. I know that, but let's go ahead and load the satellite imagery. And I guess it's time for a quick recap. It's been a while since we've done a quick recap, so I'll summarize this one more time for anyone that may be new or just tuning in. We're watching this developing cyclone off the coast right now. It's off the coast of Oregon, moving slowly towards the north-northwest, luckily away from the coast, as things currently stand. Becca says, yeah, I was on the walk and saw this. Yeah, Moski Movies. It's a device that's privately owned, but the information that they provide is public to their choosing. So the device that I was talking about in particular is on private property, but the owner chooses to upload it to a public part of the web. So it doesn't require any sort of paywall or any subscription, any of that. If that makes sense. Jenny D says, let's do it. Thanks. Yeah, so this is the system as of the last satellite scan. Notice the nice bent back occlusion in this. This is the cold front. The warm front somewhere around here. That's what brought the precip through earlier. So cold front's right here. You can see some areas of convection here where the clouds are popping up. So once this cold front moves through the Puget Sound area, that should shut down the east winds tomorrow morning and change all of the winds to out of the south. Unless you're over the open waters of the north and west of Everett, where they should still be out of the southeast. The normal wind direction up there is out of the southeast or out of the south-southeast typically. But during these westerly surge events that we get from time to time, it'll be out of the west. But we're not expecting any big westerly surge after this front comes through tomorrow morning. So you see right there, if you were paying attention, we just got a new scan on this, and it's still pulling the system a little bit west of north, which is what we want to see. And we don't want to see the system move any closer to the coast, which luckily does not appear to be the case right now. I believe the forecasted central pressure is currently still hanging around 985 millibars, which isn't superb. It's a decent cyclone right now, but it hasn't quite hit bomb cyclone status quite yet. What I've seen, it's currently undergoing bombogenesis, which is the development of a bomb cyclone, but it hasn't quite hit that bomb cyclone criteria as far as I can see. And so this is going to spin a couple of fronts in. Looks like the first front makes landfall sometime early tomorrow, and then another potential front moves through the Puget Sound. Sometime in the afternoon tomorrow, likely around sunset or right after sunset, and that should switch the wind direction to out of the south. It could bring some breezy to occasionally blustery winds over the Puget Sound, especially over the water. Again, these would be out of the south, but nothing major is expected whatsoever. Should just be your typical run-of-the-mill frontal system that we get so many times a month during the active season. Like, even the east wind threat is nothing major. You know, some of the news outlets have blown this out of proportion. I will agree on that. There's others that have tried to generously communicate any wind threat that there is in an inefficient manner. And there's really no major wind. Kim said it's too quiet out there right now. Yeah, you're likely just in a little pause between the wind, which happens from time to time. It's completely normal. The power outages keep decreasing, which is good. We're not seeing any major widespread power outages with this, which is a huge, huge plus. Yeah, some of the forecasts were uptrending before, but they've definitely moderated out a bit and have simmered down to more of a run-of-the-mill East Gap wind event, unless you're directly under these gaps, like eastern parts of Enumclaw and going up the Snoqualmie River, for example. Maybe even the Stevens Gap. But there's not a lot of station coverage out here, so we may miss out on some observations between areas like Snohomish and Index, for example. Yeah, people freak out when it's referred to as a bomb cyclone. Yeah, I've realized that there's a lot of PTSD still from that last bomb cyclone that happened in November of 2024. Seen a lot of that, but I've had to reiterate several times that this will, again, not hold a candle remotely close to that. But bomb cyclone and bombogenesis are, by definition, meteorological terms. And systems have to meet certain criteria to be able to use that nomenclature, which this one should. All forecasts have been showing this system deepening at a rate of, again, the rate is at least 1 millibar per hour over 24 hours or less. That is the criteria, and it's got to be in the mid-latitudes, which we are too. So since it's a mid-latitude cyclone deepening at that rate over a rate of time, then it does meet the criteria, by definition, of a bomb cyclone. As long as the deepening doesn't slow down overnight, expected to get down to a central pressure of approximately 975 millibars. Oh, my YouTube just crashed. Oh no. Hey, hopefully we're still up. We better still be up. Hopefully we didn't just lose the stream on YouTube. Okay, looks like we're okay. I think we survived that. Spoke too soon. Tried to knock on wood, but it didn't work. YouTube just had a catastrophic crash on my end, but it looks like we're back up. It just said, God, your tab just crashed. And I thought, oh boy, this stream's done for, but got back up, so whew, crisis averted. I think we're going to start winding down the stream very soon. The viewership has declined dramatically over the last hour or so. I think we got the point across. I hope I answered most, if not all, of your questions, anyone that has tuned in previously. And to just kind of help ease some nerves and say that this is not a big deal. Yeah, there is a little bit of a hunch behind these bomb cyclones that is going to bring catastrophic damage. That's not always the truth. Especially something like this, where it's a more offshore storm and much weaker than what we saw in previous years. This should bring run-of-the-mill, maybe slightly stronger than run-of-the-mill easterly winds to those susceptible communities. Again, areas like Eatonville, Enumclaw, Maple Valley, North Bend, Gold Bar, etc. We have seen some pretty decent winds already today, and even some reports of damage. But it shouldn't be much more than that. Not the widespread carnage that we saw back in November of 24, where there's actually still heard there's some people still trying to clean up, having issues with their insurance agencies not covering the damage, and just all of this ridiculous nonsense that shouldn't even be a thing. Hey, look, we just got another Rogue 51 out here in Enumclaw. Yeah, I think that's overdoing it quite a bit, but at least the wind gusts in the 40-mile-per-hour range, maybe the upper 40-mile-per-hour range, probably just occurred in the last 5 minutes down here in Enumclaw, if anyone can atone to that. Yeah, without all the layers on, this is what our system looks like currently on visible satellite imagery. Let me see if I can switch over to infrared. Yeah, a bit clearer to see here on infrared where the bent back occlusion is. And it's the area where the Earth's Coriolis effect has the greatest effect on it. So it's rotating counterclockwise. All low pressure systems in the north hemisphere rotate counterclockwise. Opposite in the southern hemisphere. That again is due to Coriolis forces being exerted from the Earth onto these weather systems. You know, it's why water always spins a certain way when you're in the northern hemisphere, for example. And high pressure systems are in reverse, so they rotate clockwise about a high pressure center, while low pressure rotates counterclockwise about a low pressure center. Yeah, you can start to see the convection bubble up along this front here. This could bring an isolated thunderstorm potential to some areas of western Washington tomorrow. Not seeing any lightning strikes as of now on this. I do have lightning enabled. I haven't seen any lightning on this at all, so there's not a superb amount of convection going on. Staying out here, we'll hit Pacific County around 10 tonight. Yeah, wind gusts will likely be stronger off the coast, but again, we're not expecting a widespread damaging wind event even along the coast. Wind gusts will likely be stronger off the Oregon coast than they will off the Washington coast. Because right now, all the winds are offshore, which means they're flowing from east to west. But once this front begins to move onto the coast tomorrow morning, it should switch back to onshore and we'll have the winds out of the south again. Could they be stronger? Entirely possible. Let's see if we have any new model data coming in. See how far are we on the 7 p.m. model run? 10 hours or so. This goes through about 5 a.m. So we'll go to the previous one, which goes out to 12 p.m. Show you what I mean here. So all the winds are offshore in this model here. Let's actually switch it to wind barbs so you can see the direction much easier. So see winds coming out of the east here, out of the southeast along the coast, and backwards out of the east through the Strait of Juan de Fuca. This is at 2 a.m. tomorrow. Notice once that front right here comes through, the winds shift back to onshore out of the south. And see, some of these winds could be a bit stronger too. We could have some stronger wind gusts directly along the coast as that front moves ashore. But then things should hopefully calm down a bit right behind that frontal system. I mean, all goes as planned. And you see the winds kick up around the Puget Sound, especially over the water, later on in the morning tomorrow as well. This model here shows around 10 a.m. for peak winds through there. Nothing damaging or even remotely strong expected. Just seasonal. And then see those winds calm down pretty quick as we go into the afternoon time tomorrow. Yeah, it looks like we could potentially have 2 frontal passages. Watching this one too. This is a clear as day frontal passage. This switches the southerly winds to westerly as they move onshore, and then that rides up the Puget Sound area. And again, see the winds switch directions there briefly out of the southwest as they come up through the Puget Sound area. This could be around 6 p.m. or so. No major wind gusts expected, but could be noticeably breezy to even downright blustery as that frontal system comes up. Then it takes a while, but the winds come back to the northwest interior as we go into the early morning hours of Monday, which afterwards everything should calm down to a slight breeze at best going into Monday morning. Yeah, Victor says, I have seen bad wind. There's another person that has seen the Columbus Day storm. Yeah, isolated stronger pockets of wind possible offshore with that first frontal passage tomorrow morning. Then that could bring some, I wouldn't quite say strong winds, but blustery winds up through the Puget Sound area along the I-5 corridor after the sun rises tomorrow. As we go into mid-morning tomorrow, the winds could pick up quite a bit. Again, this is out of the south, not out of the east. Once that first frontal system comes through, the east winds should be history along the mountain gaps. And then winds for the rest of the day should be onshore all around the area. Assuming, again, this doesn't pull a wacko move and flip completely on us in the next 12 hours. That should be unlikely because the model guidance is lining up a bit better in the short term for less damaging wind potential. Ideally, we should, again, not have any damaging winds overnight anywhere. But it could get quite strong the closer you are to the mountain gaps. And we've seen these occasionally strong winds pop up in areas like Enumclaw and North Bend, to name a few. But nothing super major yet. If all goes well, we shouldn't have to worry about the power outage map or any records being broken. Highly doubt the latter. Highly. Yeah, this is our system on infrared satellite, and I think by the time the sun rises tomorrow, the satellite image should be pretty incredible. Already incredible as it is, but it should be a whole nother story by the time the sun rises on this cyclone tomorrow at first light. Oakland and Westport get it sometimes bad. Yeah. Especially wave activity. The waves won't be coming out of a favorable direction to have any super high swells along the coast. You usually want the waves to come more out of the northwest. I believe these ones are going to be more out of the southwest. Retired forest ranger, staffed lookouts before retirement. Thunder and lightning was bad at times, all my lookouts. Wow, thank you for the story, Victor. That's really cool. I think that's the first forest ranger I've seen on one of my live streams. Sheila Rickers says, my apartment vents love the pop. Oh boy. I think it may be time to wind down here soon, folks. Really, at this point, I'm just restating the information said prior for anyone that is just tuning in who may have missed out on the information. Like to also thank if Gina Foxley is still in the chat. Gina Foxley, thank you for becoming a subscriber on Facebook. Appreciate that. If you'd like to become a subscriber here on Facebook, it's only 99 cents a month for extra behind the scenes perks. Also have a group that you're invited to called PSSW Superfans. If I have any new merch ideas or anything like that, that'll be the first place I post it. And also occasionally post live stream early notifications as well. Earlier on in the day before I have a planned live stream, before the public hears it. And it's also an open forum too. I've seen some people using it to report snow too, which is awesome. That's exactly what the group should be for. It's for the people to talk to each other. Sheila says, yeah, those waves are crazy in Westport. Yeah, they were something else back in early November, late October, but also throughout December too, when we had those king tides and all of those storm systems line up with each other. I remember seeing some live streams from the Westport Tower Cam out there that Ben was given permission to stream. Ben is the owner of Washington Weather Chasers. You guys on Facebook and YouTube should be highly familiar with who he is. Yeah, I'm not seeing any indications that we see any large swells or any wave activity over the next, at least the next week. So I think for the rest of February, the last week of February, we should be safe from any huge wave activity off the coast. And Victor says, the lookouts have lightning rods and are grounded. Good thing they're grounded. Else you would have been a huge heat sink for lightning. Yeah, anything that's above any other nearby structures should have a lightning rod by default. No wonder what part of the world you're in. And to the places that don't, all I gotta say is, come on, man. Let's see, anything I miss here? Go back to observations. Again, nothing super huge since the first wave came through. We go look at max wind gusts since midnight. There's some pretty crazy numbers here. I think this 58 might be off the charts a bit in terms of validity. I think this is probably overdoing it quite a bit, but I'd say we probably got close to, if not a little bit over 50 miles per hour earlier in Enumclaw. Other than that, hit a max 42 miles per hour here at Kangley, 50 here at Tanner Crossing, and 46 just outside of downtown North Bend. Other than that, nothing major, at least in the foothills. This station has been going wonky ever since it came back online the week before Christmas after that windstorm we had. This has just been recording some really erratic numbers. A few stations recording 45 plus here over the Sailor Sea, nearby areas. And a couple mid-50s. See, this is a buoy right here. And this is Cape Elizabeth, both recording a max of 54 miles per hour since midnight. And 40 miles per hour at Hoquiam and Bowerman since midnight. Best case scenario is we don't see any wind gusts stronger than this, and hopefully it was just a little bit of an over-exaggeration from some of the news sites. Because I've definitely had my doubts about the setup since I found out about it literally yesterday. I haven't been paying attention to the long-term weather models as much as I usually do. Just because I was so hyper-focused on the snow and trying to do nowcasts for the snow risk. That's what took up most of my time this last week. And so this bomb cyclone just kind of slid under my radar. Yeah, again, for anyone just tuning in, Anthony here, Puget Sound Stormwatch. I think we're going to wrap up our coverage here very soon. Appreciate everyone for your donations. Thank you for the super chats on YouTube, stars on Facebook, and your coffees. Again, if you want to donate one time to Puget Sound Stormwatch, the link is in the lower right corner of the stream. Support us at ko-fi.com/Puget Sound Stormwatch. Link is also pinned in the comments on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so much for your consideration, and I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in for this sudden live coverage this afternoon and evening. But I think at this point, we've pretty much talked about everything we've needed to talk about. Not seeing too much activity going at the moment, and I don't want to be up too late tonight talking about this. So all of the details, of course, will be on instant replay as well. Once the YouTube and Facebook streams save to my profile, you can go back in time and access any data that you may have missed. You just skip through the timestamps from time to time, and based on the number of times I've restated what I've talked about prior, should be pretty hard to miss most of the important data points I've talked about throughout the night. Ideally. Yeah, I think it's time to order some dinner. Really nice being here for your live. Thank you, Kim, for the kind words. Appreciate everyone for the kind words. And good thing my updates on the main post got a lot of attention because I guess I didn't fully clarify originally. A lot of people are saying thank you for letting us know in our language. Yeah, I usually try to keep my posts pretty informal when it comes to the wording. So like I try to make it not too complicated, but if it is pretty complicated, then I'll try to translate it to, as a lot of people would say, proper English for people to understand a little easier. We have Dagmar Devere in the chat. Thank you, Dagmar, also for being a continued subscriber to the page. Dagmar says, thank you for your time. Ivan Becerra says, are we getting any thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon in the Bothell area? Unlikely. We do have a small thunderstorm risk for parts of northwestern Washington, including the northern coast of the state also. I'll show you what I mean. Go to the day 2 categorical outlook. So this shows a small area of green here. Anywhere within 25 miles of a point along the green contour here has a slight risk of seeing non-severe thunderstorms tomorrow. And this is just the general thunderstorm contour. Once you get the marginal, then you're on the level 1 out of 5. And then it goes marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and high. But no severe thunderstorms are in the forecast tomorrow. Just general isolated thunderstorms possible when the fronts pass throughout the day tomorrow. Possible strong post-frontal showers that could produce hail showers and maybe a clap of thunder if you're lucky. But inland, it's unlikely, but not out of the question. J-Dub says, should have been a meteorologist so I could lie to everyone. You're the only one I trust. Hey, some people lie. It's just how it is. But I try my best to be as truthful as possible, and if things change, try to let you guys know in a timely manner. And then Kim said big gust in Enumclaw just now, about a minute ago. Go see if that registered. And we did get a pretty decent gust up here in Kangley, 41 miles per hour at the Kangley observation site, which is northeast of Black Diamond, southeast of Maple Valley there. I think that's the Kangley site. No, it's seeing a few new sites pop up since I was last on here. This is actually just west of Kangley. So this is the Kangley site right here. You can see the topography a little better if I turn off that contour right there. There's a new site that popped up, and I've noticed a few new observation sites popping up that are now linked to the National Weather Service since the last time I did any live wind tracking. So yeah, we have a site outside of Ravensdale here, just west of Kangley, that reported a wind gust of 41 miles per hour. And then we have the site here in Kangley, max gust 42 since midnight, current gust of 34. Good to see we have some new stations popping up here and there. Should really, really help with our live wind coverage in the future. So is there a bomb cyclone or what's up? So just because there's a bomb cyclone doesn't mean we're getting wind. A bomb cyclone, again, the meteorological definition is a cyclone that drops in pressure at least 1 millibar of pressure per hour over 24 hours or less. That is what's currently happening off the coast, but it's far enough off the coast to where it's not giving us damaging winds to the foothills. And I've been trying to stress that fact for as long as I found out that there was a cyclone bombing out off the coast. And it is a meteorological term. So there's no fake news, there's no fear mongering. Just been explaining that a bomb cyclone is underway, but it doesn't mean that there's going to be strong winds. At least damaging winds. Because there's a lot of misinformation going around about what a bomb cyclone is, especially after November of 2024's catastrophic bomb cyclone in the foothills. So technically, yes, there is a bomb cyclone underway off the coast, but it's not as strong as what we had November 2024, and it's farther offshore as well. At least to my knowledge, it's either right around the same position, if not a little bit farther west, and will pan off to the west as well. See, the most recent forecast here, this red arrow right here, brings it further to the west away from the coast. So bomb cyclone does not equal big wind. But yes, there is a bomb cyclone. If it's not already there, it will be by tomorrow morning. But distance and strength are going to save us again from any big notable east wind event or the mountain gaps. Liking Rock 76, just dropping in. Hello there. Welcome into the chat. Just talking all things weather at this point. Not much more than that, though. Any idea on temps this upcoming week? I hate scraping my windows. Yeah, we can take a look at some temps real quick. Let's see, where's the model? There it is. Usually the preferred model I use on this is the NBM, the National Blend of Models, and this is what the NWS uses as well. Why it's called the NWS Blend of Models, or the National Blend of Models. Let's zoom in to the state and take a look at some temperatures over the next... See, this goes out to 10 days right now. So looking pretty mild overnight. It's hourly up until you get to hour 36, and then it goes every 6 hours. See, it shows us getting up to 50 tomorrow. Pretty mild day on tap, likely. And then it looks like we stay relatively mild. We may have a bit of a cooler day here, or cooler night. The last day of February here. This is still a week out, so probably going to change But as of right now, it's looking like the next cool day is probably going to be the last day of February. And then an even cooler day, potentially the first day of March. Morning time temperatures could start out around freezing, if not maybe below freezing for some areas. But then, looks like pretty quickly after that, within 2 days, the much more mild air mass returns and we're back into the 50s. This could potentially be a quick little polar lobe coming out of the north. Wonder what the European ensembles show for this. Zoom out and look at some heights real quick. 500 millibar height anomalies, the average of that. Yeah, so that's our storm system spinning up off the coast. Jay says, I like it. Thank you. Yep. Potential to be under the jet stream again by Tuesday. We'll be watching that. Atmospheric river potential. Yes, I said that word. Maybe clipped by a little transient trough. Then it becomes really uncertain after that. This would be an atmospheric river coming out of the northwest, which would likely bring the snow levels down a bit for the mountains. Even though it's a mild atmospheric river, it's still going to bring in some cooler air from the northwest direction, which should help our snow levels a bit. The rest of us on the south end of it could be under some ridging at the very end of the month. You see, we're actually almost directly underneath this ridge, and that's exactly why the temperatures cool down as much as they do. Going into the end of February and the very beginning of March. Then it looks like we're back under the jet stream again. This is 15 days out, so take this with a grain of salt. But the current indications on the ensemble forecasts are showing that we could be under another atmospheric river pattern again, potentially. Going into the second week of March. And again, details on this are unclear at the moment. We'll have to watch for further updates as they come in. Chad Limestall's in the chat. Hello. Okay, guys, I think we got most of the point across. And this is infrared satellite imagery of our cyclone currently undergoing bombogenesis, which is the development of a bomb cyclone. I believe Michael Snyder with Pacific Northwest Weather Watch has already confirmed that this process is underway. At the very least, cyclogenesis, which is the development of a mid-latitude cyclone. This is already a pretty mature mid-latitude cyclone, but it's just a matter of how much more will it deepen by the time it hits peak maturity. So right now, again, model forecasts are showing somewhere in the 977 range to 972 range, as far as I know. Which is a pretty decent cyclone nonetheless. Luckily, it's going to be veering away from the coast as it's doing this, at least according to current model forecasts in the short term, which is the best news you could hear for something like this. Yeah, I think we're going to start to wrap things up for the night, do one more check on the wind gusts. And register as the 45 down here in Enumclaw. Another 40-mile-per-hour gust likely occurred in the last 15 minutes or so in North Bend, too. So we're still going to have these gusts throughout the night, but hopefully, assuming everything works out according to the forecast, it shouldn't be much stronger than this for these areas out here. Even the coast is pretty anemic right now, which is good. This is what you want to see. Still live? Yes, we are still live. Hello there, Julie Bradford out of Oso, saying it's windy as of 8:30. Thank you for the report. But yeah, again, before we end, just want to reiterate, nothing huge is expected. Thankfully, the storm system is well off the coast. It's moving away. And we're not going to have a repeat of November 2024. Just thought I would say that one more time for anyone who may have missed the discussion earlier. That we're not expecting anything major. It should just be one of your maybe slightly above run-of-the-mill events for the Cascade Gaps. Gusted the 49 at Destruction Island. Not too shabby. Yeah, Kim says awesome. Good to see I got your approval. Guys, think I'm going to eat something before I head to bed. If you guys enjoyed the stream, please consider a small donation. Again, the best way to do this is through Coffee, aka ko-fi.com/Puget Sound Stormwatch. Link is in the description. Okay, someone else just tuning in. Hang on. Yeah, we'll go over this one more time before we go. Tuning in from JBLM. Wait, what's going on? Jasmine is asking, how's JBLM for whatever is happening? JBLM, you should be far enough west to not get any significant gap wind gusts. And even then, significant is wording it pretty strongly. So nothing major is expected tonight. You know, nowhere even close to what we saw in November of 24. I know November of 2024, the wind gusts extended all the way out towards JBLM. And my area in Milton got smacked with nearly 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts for several hours with those mountain waves. That is likely out of the question today. So JBLM may get a bit breezy when that front comes through tomorrow out of the south. Wow, thank you for your generosity. Julie Bradford sent 10 gifted Puget Sound Stormwatch memberships on YouTube. And welcome aboard, everyone that was gifted the membership. Christy Duval also just tuning in. Bryson Thomas says, thank you for these awesome updates. Sure thing. Glad to be here to help. Christy says, just catching up. I'm in Sammamish. Sammamish area, I believe you're just on the outside of this advisory, but you may be close enough to the advisory contour to get some of these breezy winds overnight. Nothing major currently occurring. Had some occasionally larger gusts at some of the Enumclaw and North Bend observation stations, like this 40-mile-per-hour one that occurred not long ago. We shouldn't see anything much stronger than this overnight. However, that could change at short notice. It very well could change. So just be alert for any dramatic changes in the wind. You know, especially if you face east and the closer you are to these mountain gaps. The farther west you are, the lower your wind risk is going to be. Thank you guys for the kind words. I think unless we get any other last minute questions that come in before we end, this should do it for our live coverage for tonight. Can't believe it's been 3 hours already since we've been live here on Facebook and YouTube. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, especially with short notice. Christy says, thanks. We usually get strong winds. We're right in the gap and face east. Yeah, these winds are going to be coming out of the southeast. So the orientations for gap winds may be a little bit different this time around. It's not going to be a due east wind event like we've seen in the past. So some areas may not get much wind at all, while some areas could get stronger winds. You know, the winds are going to be funneled from southeast up towards the northwest, out through the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and then into this system as it passes off to the northwest of the Washington coast. Lycan Rock 76 says good night. Good night to you also. Thank you for tuning in. Kim Leonard says bye. Have a great night, Kim. Hopefully you don't get anything too strong overnight. Again, these wind advisories for the areas in brown are in effect until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So southeasterly winds 20 to 30 miles per hour with gusts to 45 expected for the foothills and 50 for the coast, including areas like Nia Bay, Ozette, Claylock, Queets, Mo Clips, Copolis Beach, Pacific Beach, Ocean City, Ocean Shores, and Westport, to name a few key areas along the coast. For the foothills, again, this includes areas such as Gold Bar, Sultan, Enumclaw, Eatonville. I believe I said North Bend already. Snoqualmie, Maple Valley, Hobart, Ravensdale, and surrounding communities facing the mountain gaps. Moski Movie says, thank you again for the coverage. Absolutely. Kim Leonard says, me too. Yeah. Yeah, Buckley area included. Yeah, thank you guys for the likes, the follows, the subscriptions, and of course the donations. Appreciate that. And there's Sonia tuning in at the very last minute. Hello, Sonia. Good evening. How are you doing today? I actually missed you the last couple of streams. It hasn't been in front of the desktop like this. I've done some periodic live streams, like IRL style live streams outside. Like the last one, for example, was the snow. So I was looking at the snowfall as it was falling outside. I streamed for about a little over a half hour or so before the snow petered out. Gary Logston is asking about Puyallup. Puyallup itself is not included in the wind advisory, but some areas of Puyallup up in the hills here are technically included. So these are approximately drawn out boundaries here by the National Weather Service. So some areas within the boundaries may not get the wind, while also some areas outside of the boundary may get the wind. So it's kind of a toss-up, but these are approximate aliased contours here set by the National Weather Service. So Puyallup, the higher your elevation is, if you're exposed to any of these easterly wind gaps, you'll most likely get some noticeable wind overnight and tomorrow morning. That is pretty much a guarantee. Winds should pick up a bit when they switch to out of the south tomorrow when the first front comes through in the morning time, in which we could get a small burst of wind up through the Puget Sound all the way as far north as the Salish Sea. But winds again are not expected to be very strong. Winds could be locally stronger in areas where heavier showers move through, such as within the cold front itself. Could be some little embedded squall segments that produce strong wind for a brief amount of time. But these aren't expected to be damaging in any aspect. And of course, again, a very small but non-zero thunderstorm chance tomorrow with that front coming through. And any embedded segments that come through have the chance of producing hail, heavy rain, brief, maybe strong wind, and even some thunder if you're one of the lucky ones. Gary says, thank you. Yes, glad to help answer your question, sir. Yeah, not too much right now, and the viewership is tuning out, so we're going to wind down for the night. Again, this is Anthony, Puget Sound Stormwatch, doing the usual live stream coverage of any storm events that happen. Hoping to keep this up as frequent as possible, but barring some changes coming up likely next month, that stream frequency may change. We may not be streaming as often during storm events, just as a heads up. As it's going right now, I won't be able to sustain the full-time streams, but I'm still hoping to do hopefully at least one stream a week from March onward. That is my goal right now. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Again, in case you ever want to send a last-minute donation, the link is down in the right corner of the stream. The window here where it says support us at ko-fi.com/Puget Sound Stormwatch. Link is also pinned in the YouTube and Facebook comments if you guys want to consider a small tip to help keep live streams like this possible in the future. So appreciate the generosity again, and I believe that's it. Don't see any more questions coming in. So if you're tuning in to this stream after it's done streaming in replay mode, I've gone over the gone over the synopsis several times throughout the stream, so hopefully if you skip through, you should hopefully find replays of the general synopsis of what's going on. So I hope that's not too much hassle for anyone after the stream ends. All streams are deleted by Facebook, unfortunately, due to a new policy after the month, after 30 days, but everything is archived here on YouTube. In case you ever want to go back and find a stream on YouTube, everything is archived under the live tab on Puget Sound Stormwatch. All right, that's going to do it. I need to rest my voice box, drink some water, get something to eat so I don't go to bed hungry. Have a great night, everyone. I think that's going to do it. And again, one more time, I'm going to say this one more time before the stream ends. No major wins expected. Okay. Have a great night, everyone. Take care. Going to be signing off. Anthony, outro.